Deuteronomy, chapter 1. These are the words which Moses addressed to all Israel beyond the Jordan, in the desert, in the Arabah facing Suph, between Paran and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth and Dizahab. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. It was in the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, that Moses told the Israelites everything that Yahweh had ordered him to tell them. He had defeated Sihon king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon, and Og king of Bashan, who lived at Ashtaroth and Edrei. There, in Moab beyond the Jordan, Moses resolved to expound this law. He said, Yahweh our God said to us at Horeb, "You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Move on, continue your journey, go to the highlands of the Amorites, to all those who live in the Arabah, in the highlands, in the lowlands, in the Negeb and in the coastland. Go into Canaan and to Lebanon as far as the great river Euphrates. Look, that is the country I have given you. Go and take possession of the country that Yahweh promised on oath to give to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, and to their descendants after them. At the same time, I told you, I cannot be responsible for you by myself. Yahweh your God has increased your numbers, until you are now as numerous as the stars of heaven. And Yahweh your God is going to increase you 1,000 times more, and bless you as he has promised you. So how can I cope by myself with the bitter burden that you are, and with your bickering? From each of your tribes pick wise, shrewd and experienced men for me to make your leaders." You replied, "Your plan is good." So I took your tribal leaders, wise, experienced men, and appointed them to lead you, as captains of thousands, hundreds, 50s, 10s, and as scribes for your tribes. At that same time I told your judges, "You must give your brothers a fair hearing and see justice done between one person and his brother or the foreigner living with him. You must be impartial in judgment and give an equal hearing to small and great alike. Do not be afraid of any human person, for the verdict is God's. Should a case be too difficult, bring it for me to hear." And on that occasion I gave you instructions about everything you were to do. So, as Yahweh our God had ordered, we left Horeb and made our way through that vast and terrible desert, which you saw on the way to the Amorite highlands, and arrived at Kadesh Barnea. I then said, "You have now reached the Amorite highlands, which Yahweh our God has given us. Look, Yahweh your God has given you this country. March in, take possession of it as Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, has said. Do not be afraid or discouraged." Then you all came to me and said, "Let us send men ahead of us to explore the country. They shall report to us which way we ought to take and what towns we shall come to." This seemed good advice to me, and I selected 12 men from among you, one from each tribe. These men made towards the highlands and went up into them. They reached the valley of Eshcol and reconnoitered it. They collected some of the produce of the country and brought it down to us. And they made us this report, "Yahweh our God has given us a fine country." You, however, refused to go up there and rebelled against the voice of Yahweh your God. You muttered in your tents, saying, "Yahweh hates us, and that is why he has brought us out of Egypt, to put us into the Amorites' power and so destroy us. What kind of place are we making for? Our brothers have discouraged us by saying that the people are stronger and taller than we are. The city's immense, with walls reaching to the sky. And we have seen Anakim there too. And I said to you, do not take fright, do not be afraid of them. Yahweh your God goes ahead of you and will be fighting on your side, just as you saw him act in Egypt. You have seen him in the desert too. Yahweh your God continued to support you, as a man supports his son, all along the road you followed until you arrived here. But for all this, you put no faith in Yahweh your God, going ahead of you on the journey to find you a camping ground, by night in the fire to light your path, and in the cloud by day. Yahweh heard what you were saying and in his anger swore this oath. Not one of these people, this perverse generation, will see the fine country I swore to give your ancestors, except Caleb son of Jephunneh. He will see it. To him and to his children I shall give the land he has set foot on. for he has been perfectly obedient to Yahweh. Yahweh was angry with me too, because of you. You will not go in either, he said. Your assistant, Joshua son of Nun, will be the one to enter. Encourage him, since he is to bring Israel into possession of the country. And your little ones too, who, you said, would be seized as booty, these children of yours who do not yet know good from evil, they will go in. I shall give it to them and they will own it. But, as regards yourselves, turn round, go back into the desert, towards the Sea of Suf. In reply, you then said to me, We have sinned against Yahweh our God. We shall go up and fight just as Yahweh our God has ordered us. And each one of you buckled on his arms and equipped himself to march up into the highlands. But Yahweh said to me, Tell them this, Do not go up and fight. I am not with you. Do not let yourselves be defeated by your enemies. So I told you, but you would not listen, and you rebelled against the voice of Yahweh. Presumptuously you marched into the highlands. The Amorites, who live in that country of hills, came swarming out against you like bees, pursued you and beat you from Seir to Hormah. On your return, you wept in Yahweh's presence, but he would not listen to your cries or pay attention. That was why you had to stay at Kadesh as long as you did. Deuteronomy, chapter 2. We then turned round and made for the desert, in the direction of the Sea of Suf, as Yahweh had ordered me. For many days we skirted Mount Seir. Yahweh then said to me, You have gone far enough round this mountain. Now turn north, and give the people this order. You are about to pass through the territory of your kinsmen, the sons of Esau who live in Seir. They are afraid of you, and you will be well protected. Do not provoke them, for I shall give you none of their land. No, not so much as a foot's length of it. I have given the highlands of Seir to Esau as his domain. Pay them in money for what food you eat, and pay them in money for the water you drink. Yahweh your God has blessed you in all you do. He has watched over your journeying through this vast desert. Yahweh your God has been with you these 40 years, and you have never been in want. So we passed beyond those relatives of ours, the children of Esau who live in Seir, by the road through the Arabah, Elath and Ezion-Geber. Then, changing direction, we took the road towards the plains of Moab. Yahweh then said to me, Do not attack Moab, do not provoke him to fight, for I shall give you none of his land, since I have given Ar to the children of Lot as their domain. At one time the Emim lived there, a great and numerous people, tall as the Anakim. And like the Anakim, they were considered to be Rephaim, though the Moabites call them Emim. The Horites, too, lived in Seir at one time. These, however, were dispossessed and exterminated by the children of Esau who settled there in place of them, just as Israel has done in the country given to it by Yahweh as a heritage. On your way, then, cross the Wadi Zird. And so we crossed the Wadi Zird. From Kadesh Barnea to the crossing of the Wadi Zird our wanderings had taken 38 years, as a result of which, the entire generation of those of age to bear arms had been eliminated, as Yahweh had sworn to them. Yahweh's hand had been against them, to eliminate them completely from the camp. When death had carried off from the people those of age to bear arms, to the last man, Yahweh said this to me, You are now crossing Ar, the country of Moab, and soon you will encounter the children of Ammon. Do not attack them, do not provoke them, for I shall give you none of the land belonging to the children of Ammon as your domain. I have given it to the children of Lot as theirs. This used also to be considered as Rephaim territory. At one time the Rephaim lived there, though the Ammonites call them Zamzummim, a great and numerous people, and tall like the Anakim. Yahweh exterminated them for the Ammonites who dispossessed them and settled there in place of them, just as he had done for the children of Esau who live in Seir, so that they dispossessed the Horites and settled there instead of them and are still there now. It was the same with the Avites who occupied encampments as far as Gaza. The Caphtorim, coming from Caphtor, exterminated them and settled there instead. On your way, break camp and cross the Wadi Arnon. See, I am putting Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, at your mercy, and his country too. Set about the conquest. Engage him in battle. Today and henceforth, I shall fill the peoples under all heaven with fear and terror of you. Whoever hears word of your approach will tremble and writhe in anguish because of you. So, from the desert of Kedemoth I sent envoys to Sihon king of Heshbon with this peaceful message. I intend to cross your country. I shall go my way, straying neither to right nor to left. I shall eat and pay for the food you choose to sell me, and I shall drink and pay for the water you let me have. I only want to march through, just as the children of Esau who live in Seir permitted, as well as the Moabites who live in Ar, until I cross the Jordan into the country that Yahweh our God is giving us. But Sihon king of Heshbon would not give us leave to pass through his territory. Yahweh our God had made his spirit obstinate and his heart stubborn, to put him at your mercy, as he still is. Yahweh said to me, You see, I am starting to give you Sihon and his country. Begin the conquest by seizing his country. Sihon marched out against us, he and all his people, to give battle at Jahaz. And Yahweh our God handed him over to us. We defeated him and his sons and all his people. We captured all his towns and laid all these towns under the curse of destruction. Men, women, and children. We left no survivors except the livestock which we took as our booty, and the spoils of the captured towns. From Aroer on the edge of the Arnon valley and from the town down in the valley, as far as Gilead, not one town was beyond our reach. Yahweh our God delivered them all to us. You did not, however, go near the country of the Ammonites, or the region of the river Jabbok, or the towns in the highlands, or anywhere forbidden us by Yahweh our God. Deuteronomy, chapter 3. We then turned on Bashan and invaded that. And Og king of Bashan marched out against us, he and all his people, to give battle at Edrei. Yahweh said to me, Do not be afraid of him, for I have put him at your mercy, him, all his people and his country. You will treat him as you treated Sihon king of the Amorites who lived in Heshbon. So, Yahweh our God put Og king of Bashan at our mercy too, with all his people. We beat him so thoroughly that nobody was left. That was when we captured all his towns. There was not a town of theirs we did not take. 60 towns, the whole confederation of Argob, Og's kingdom in Bashan, all of them fortresses defended by high walls and fortified with gates and bars, not to mention the Perizzite towns, which were very numerous. We laid them under the curse of destruction as we had done Sihon king of Heshbon, laying all these towns under the curse of destruction, men, women, and children, but we seized the livestock and spoils of the towns as booty for ourselves. Thus, by then we had taken the country of the 2 Amorite kings beyond the Jordan, stretching from the Wadi Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians call Hermon Sirion, and the Amorites call it Senir, all the towns of the tableland, all Gilead, and all Bashan as far as Salika and Edrei, the capital cities of Og in Bashan. Og king of Bashan was the last survivor of the Rephaim. His bed was the iron bed that can be seen at Rabbah of the Ammonites, 9 cubits long and 4 wide, according to the human cubit. Then we took possession of this country, from Aroer on the Wadi Arnon. To the Reubenites and Gadites I gave half the highlands of Gilead with its towns. To the half-tribe of Manasseh I gave the rest of Gilead and the whole of Bashan, Og's kingdom. The whole confederation of Argob and the whole of Bashan is called the country of the Rephaim. Since Jair son of Manasseh occupied the whole confederation of Argob as far as the frontiers of the Jeshurites and Maccathites, after him Bashan is called the encampments of Jair even today. To Machir I gave Gilead. To the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave the region from Gilead to the Wadi Arnon, the middle of the ravine marking the boundary, and up as far as the Jabbok, the ravine marking the frontier of the Ammonites. The Arabah and the Jordan serve as frontiers from Chinnereth down to the Sea of the Arabah, the Salt Sea, at the foot of the slopes of Pisgah on the east. I then gave you this order. Yahweh your God has given you this country to be yours. armed, every one of you fit to fight must go ahead of your brothers the Israelites. Only your wives, your children, and your flocks, you have many flocks I know, must stay behind in the towns which I have given you, until Yahweh has brought your brothers to rest as he has already brought you, and they too possess the territory which Yahweh your God is giving them on the other side of the Jordan. After that, you can go home, each to the domain I have given you. I then gave Joshua this order. You can see for yourself everything that Yahweh our God has done to these two kings. Yahweh will do the same to all the kingdoms through which you pass. Do not be afraid of them. Yahweh your God himself is fighting for you. I then pleaded with Yahweh. My Lord Yahweh, I said, now that you have begun to reveal your greatness and your power to your servant with works and mighty deeds no God in heaven or on earth can rival, may I not go across and see this fine country on the other side of the Jordan, that fine upland country in the Lebanon? But because of you, Yahweh was angry with me and would not listen. Enough. He said, do not mention this subject again. Climb to the top of Pisgah. Turn your eyes to the west, the north, the south, the east. Look well, for across this Jordan you shall not go. Give Joshua your instructions. Encourage him, strengthen him. For he will be the one to cross at the head of this people. He will be the one to bring them into possession of the country which you will see. We then stayed in the valley, close to Beth-Peor. Deuteronomy, chapter 4. And now, Israel, listen to the laws and customs which I am teaching you today, so that, by observing them, you may survive to enter and take possession of the country which Yahweh, God of your ancestors, is giving you. You must add nothing to what I command you, and take nothing from it, but keep the commandments of Yahweh your God just as I lay them down for you. You can see for yourselves what Yahweh has done about the Baal of Peor. Yahweh your God has destroyed all those of you who followed the Baal of Peor, but those of you who stayed faithful to Yahweh your God are all alive today. Look, as Yahweh my God commanded me, I have taught you laws and customs, for you to observe in the country of which you are going to take possession. Keep them, put them into practice, and other peoples will admire your wisdom and prudence. Once they know what all these laws are, they will exclaim, no other people is as wise and prudent as this great nation. And indeed, what great nation has its gods as near as Yahweh our God is to us whenever we call to him? And what great nation has laws and customs as upright as the entirety of this law which I am laying down for you today? But take care, as you value your lives. Do not forget the things which you yourselves have seen, or let them slip from your heart as long as you live. Teach them, rather, to your children and to your children's children. The day you stood at Horeb in the presence of Yahweh your God, Yahweh said to me, summon the people to me. I want them to hear me speaking, so that they will learn to fear me all the days they live on earth, and teach this to their children. So you came and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain flamed to the very sky, a sky darkened by cloud, murky and thunderous. Yahweh then spoke to you from the heart of the fire. You heard the sound of words but saw no shape. There was only a voice. He revealed his covenant to you and commanded you to observe it, the 10 words which he inscribed on 2 tablets of stone. Yahweh then ordered me to teach you the laws and customs that you were to observe in the country into which you are about to cross, to take possession of it. Hence, be very careful what you do. Since you saw no shape that day at Horeb when Yahweh spoke to you from the heart of the fire, see that you do not corrupt yourselves by making an image in the shape of anything whatever, be it statue of man or of woman, or of any animal on the earth, or of any bird that flies in the heavens, or of any reptile that crawls on the ground, or of any fish in the waters under the earth. When you raise your eyes to heaven, when you see the sun, the moon, the stars, the entire array of heaven, do not be tempted to worship them and serve them. Yahweh your God has allotted these to all the other peoples under heaven, but Yahweh has chosen you, bringing you out of the iron foundry, Egypt, to be his own people as you still are today. Yahweh is angry with me because of you. He has sworn that I shall not cross the Jordan or enter the fine country which Yahweh your God is giving you as your heritage. Yes, I am to die in this country, I shall not cross this Jordan. You will go over and take possession of that rich land. Be careful not to forget the covenant which Yahweh your God has made with you, by sculpting an image or making a statue of anything, since Yahweh your God has forbidden this. For Yahweh your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. When you have fathered children and grandchildren and have grown old in the country, when you have grown corrupt and made some image, doing what Yahweh regards as wrong and so provoking his anger, today I call heaven and earth to witness against you. You will quickly vanish from the country which you are crossing the Jordan to possess. Your days will not be prolonged there, for you will be utterly destroyed. Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples, and only a small number of you will remain among the nations where Yahweh will have driven you. There you will serve gods made by human hand, of wood and of stone, that cannot see or hear, eat or smell. If, however, from there you start searching once more for Yahweh your God, and if you search for him honestly and sincerely, you will find him. You will suffer. Everything I have said will befall you, but in the final days you will return to Yahweh your God and listen to his voice. For Yahweh your God is a merciful God and will not desert or destroy you or forget the covenant which he made on oath with your ancestors. Put this question, then, to the ages that are past, that have gone before you, from when God created the human race on earth. Was there ever a word so majestic from one end of heaven to the other? Was anything like it ever heard? Did ever a people hear the voice of the living God speaking from the heart of the fire, as you have heard it, and remain alive? Has it ever been known before that any God took action himself to bring one nation out of another one, by ordeals, signs, wonders, war with mighty hand and outstretched arm, by fearsome terrors, all of which things Yahweh your God has done for you before your eyes in Egypt? This he showed you so that you might know that Yahweh is the true God and that there is no other. To instruct you, he made you hear his voice from heaven, and on earth he let you see his great fire, and from the heart of the fire you heard his words. Because he loved your ancestors and after them chose their descendants, he has brought you out of Egypt, displaying his presence and mighty power, dispossessing for you nations who were larger and stronger than you, to make way for you and to give you their country as your heritage, as it still is today. Hence, grasp this today and meditate on it carefully. Yahweh is the true God, in heaven above as on earth beneath, he and no other. Keep his laws and commandments as I give them to you today, so that you and your children after you may prosper and live long in the country that Yahweh your God is giving you forever. Moses then set aside 3 towns in the east, beyond the Jordan, to which any killer might flee who had accidentally, without any previous feud, killed his fellow. By taking refuge in one of these towns he could save his life. These were, for the Reubenites, Bezer in the desert on the tableland; for the Gadites, Ramoth in Gilead; for the Manasseites, Golan in Bashan. This is the law which Moses presented to the Israelites. These are the stipulations, the laws and the customs which Moses gave the Israelites after they had left Egypt, beyond the Jordan in the valley near Beth Peor, in the country of Sihon the Amorite king who had lived at Heshbon. Moses and the Israelites had defeated him when they left Egypt, and had taken possession of his country, as well as that of Og king of Bashan, 2 Amorite kings to the east beyond the Jordan, from Aroer on the edge of the Arnon valley, all the way to Mount Shaun, that is, Hermon, and of the whole Arabah east of the Jordan as far as the sea of the Arabah, at the foot of the slopes of Pisgah. Deuteronomy, chapter 5. Moses called all Israel together and said to them, Listen, Israel, to the laws and customs that I proclaim to you today. Learn them and take care to observe them. Yahweh our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. Yahweh made this covenant not with our ancestors, but with us, with all of us alive here today. On the mountain, from the heart of the fire, Yahweh spoke to you face to face, while I stood between you and Yahweh to let you know what Yahweh was saying, since you were afraid of the fire and had not gone up the mountain. He said, I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the place of slave labor. You will have no gods other than me. You must not make yourselves any image or any likeness of anything in heaven above or on earth beneath or in the waters under the earth. You must not bow down to these gods or serve them. For I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God, and I punish the parents' fault in the children, the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, among those who hate me. But I show faithful love to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. You must not misuse the name of Yahweh your God, for Yahweh will not leave unpunished anyone who uses his name for what is false. Observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, as Yahweh your God has commanded you. Labor for 6 days, doing all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath for Yahweh your God. You must not do any work that day, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your servants, male or female, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor any of your animals, nor the foreigner who has made his home with you, so that your servants, male and female, may rest as you do. Remember that you were once a slave in Egypt, and that Yahweh your God brought you out of there with mighty hand and outstretched arm. This is why Yahweh your God has commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, as Yahweh your God has commanded you, so that you may have long life and may prosper in the country which Yahweh your God is giving you. You must not kill. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not give false evidence against your fellow. You must not set your heart on your neighbor's spouse. You must not set your heart on your neighbor's house, or field, or servant man or woman, or ox, or donkey or any of your neighbor's possessions. These were the words Yahweh spoke to you when you were all assembled on the mountain. Thunderously, he spoke to you from the heart of the fire, in cloud and thick darkness. He added nothing, but wrote them on 2 tablets of stone which he gave to me. Now, having heard this voice coming out of the darkness, while the mountain was all on fire, you came to me, all of you, heads of tribes and elders, and said, Yahweh our God has shown us his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice from the heart of the fire. Today we have seen that God can speak with a human being and that person still live. So why should we expose ourselves to death again? For this great fire might devour us if we go on listening to the voice of Yahweh our God, and then we should die. For what creature of flesh could possibly live after hearing, as we have heard, the voice of the living God speaking from the heart of the fire? Go nearer yourself and listen to everything that Yahweh our God may say, and then tell us everything that Yahweh our God has told you. We shall listen and put it into practice. Yahweh heard what you were saying to me, and he then said to me, I have heard what these people are saying. Everything they have said is well said. If only their heart were always so, set on fearing me and on keeping my commandments, so that they and their children might prosper forever. Go and tell them to go back to their tents. But you yourself stay here with me, and I shall tell you all the commandments, the laws and the customs which you are to teach them and which they are to observe in the country which I am giving them as their possession. Keep them and put them into practice. Such is Yahweh's command to you. Stray neither to right nor to left. Follow the whole way that Yahweh has marked for you, and you will survive to prosper and live long in the country which you are going to possess. Deuteronomy Chapter 6. Such then are the commandments, the laws and the customs which Yahweh your God has instructed me to teach you, for you to observe in the country which you are on your way to possess. And hence, if throughout your lives you fear Yahweh your God and keep all his laws and commandments, which I am laying down for you today, you will live long, you and your child and your grandchild. Listen then, Israel, keep and observe what will make you prosperous and numerous, as Yahweh, God of your ancestors, has promised you, in giving you a country flowing with milk and honey. Listen, Israel. Yahweh our God is the one, the only Yahweh. You must love Yahweh your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Let the words I enjoin on you today stay in your heart. You shall tell them to your children, and keep on telling them, when you are sitting at home, when you are out and about, when you are lying down and when you are standing up. You must fasten them on your hand as a sign and on your forehead as a headband. You must write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. When Yahweh has brought you into the country which he swore to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that he would give you, with great and prosperous cities you have not built, with houses full of good things you have not provided, with wells you have not dug, with vineyards and olive trees you have not planted, and then, when you have eaten as much as you want, be careful you do not forget Yahweh who has brought you out of Egypt, out of the place of slave labor. Yahweh your God is the one you must fear. Him alone you must serve. His is the name by which you must swear. Do not follow other gods, gods of the peoples round you, for Yahweh your God among you is a jealous God. The wrath of Yahweh your God would blaze out against you, and he would wipe you off the face of the earth. Do not put Yahweh your God to the test as you tested him at Massah. Keep the commandments of Yahweh your God, and his instructions and laws which he has laid down for you, and do what Yahweh regards as right and good, so that you may prosper and take possession of the fine country which Yahweh swore to give your ancestors, driving out your enemies before you. Such was Yahweh's promise. In times to come, when your child asks you, "What is the meaning of these instructions, laws, and customs which Yahweh our God has laid down for you?" you are to tell your child, "Once we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, and Yahweh brought us out of Egypt by his mighty hand. Before our eyes, Yahweh worked great and terrible signs and wonders against Egypt, against Pharaoh and his entire household. And he brought us out of there, to lead us into the country which he had sworn to our ancestors that he would give us. And Yahweh has commanded us to observe all these laws and to fear Yahweh our God, so as to be happy forever and to survive, as we do to this day. For us, right living will mean this: to keep and observe all these commandments in obedience to Yahweh our God, as he has commanded us. Deuteronomy, chapter 7. When Yahweh your God has brought you into the country which you are going to make your own, many nations will fall before you: Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, 7 nations greater and stronger than yourselves. Yahweh your God will put them at your mercy, and you will conquer them. You must put them under the curse of destruction. You must not make any treaty with them or show them any pity. You must not intermarry with them. You must not give a daughter of yours to a son of theirs, or take a daughter of theirs for a son of yours, for your son would be seduced from following me into serving other gods. The wrath of Yahweh would blaze out against you, and he would instantly destroy you. Instead, treat them like this: tear down their altars, smash their standing stones, cut down their sacred poles, and burn their idols. For you are a people consecrated to Yahweh your God. Of all the peoples on earth, you have been chosen by Yahweh your God to be his own people. Yahweh set his heart on you and chose you not because you were the most numerous of all peoples, for indeed you were the smallest of all, but because he loved you and meant to keep the oath which he swore to your ancestors. That was why Yahweh brought you out with his mighty hand and redeemed you from the place of slave labor, from the power of Pharaoh king of Egypt. From this you can see that Yahweh your God is the true God, the faithful God who, though he is true to his covenant and his faithful love for 1,000 generations as regards those who love him and keep his commandments, punishes in their own persons those that hate him. He destroys anyone who hates him without delay, and it is in their own persons that he punishes them. Hence, you must keep and observe the commandments, laws, and customs which I am laying down for you today. Listen to these ordinances, be true to them and observe them, and in return Yahweh your God will be true to the covenant and love which he promised on oath to your ancestors. He will love you and bless you and increase your numbers. He will bless the fruit of your body and the produce of your soil, your corn, your new wine, your oil, the issue of your cattle, the young of your flock, in the country which he swore to your ancestors that he would give you. You will be the most blessed of all peoples. None of you, man or woman, will be sterile, no male or female of your beasts infertile. Yahweh will deflect all illness from you. He will not afflict you with those evil plagues of Egypt which you have known, but will inflict them on all who hate you. So devour all the peoples whom Yahweh your God puts at your mercy. Show them no pity, do not serve their gods, or you will be ensnared. You may say in your heart, "These nations outnumber me. How shall I be able to dispossess them?" Do not be afraid of them. Remember how Yahweh your God treated Pharaoh and all Egypt, the great ordeals that you yourselves have seen, the signs and wonders, the mighty hand and outstretched arm with which Yahweh your God brought you out. This is how Yahweh your God will treat all the peoples whom you fear to face. And what is more, Yahweh your God will send hornets to destroy those who are left and who hide from you. Do not be afraid of them, for Yahweh your God is among you, a great and terrible God. Little by little, Yahweh your God will clear away these nations before you. You cannot destroy them all at once, or wild animals will breed and be disastrous for you. But Yahweh your God will put them at your mercy, and disaster after disaster will overtake them until they are finally destroyed. He will put their kings at your mercy, and you will blot out their names unto heaven. No one will be able to resist you, until you have destroyed them all. You must burn the statues of their gods, not coveting the gold and silver that covers them. Take it and you will be caught in a snare. It is detestable to Yahweh your God. You must not bring any detestable thing into your house, or you, like it, will come under the curse of destruction. You must regard them as unclean and loathsome, for they are under the curse of destruction. Deuteronomy, chapter 8. You must keep and put into practice all the commandments which I enjoin on you today, so that you may survive and increase in numbers and enter the country which Yahweh promised on oath to your ancestors, and make it your own. Remember the long road by which Yahweh your God led you for 40 years in the desert, to humble you, to test you and know your inmost heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. He humbled you, he made you feel hunger, he fed you with manna which neither you nor your ancestors had ever known, to make you understand that human beings live not on bread alone but on every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. The clothes on your back did not wear out and your feet were not swollen, all those 40 years. Learn from this that Yahweh your God was training you as a man trains his child, and keep the commandments of Yahweh your God, and so follow his ways and fear him. But Yahweh your God is bringing you into a fine country, a land of streams and springs, of waters that well up from the deep in valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines, of figs, of pomegranates, a land of olives, of oil, of honey, a land where you will eat bread without stint, where you will want nothing, a land where the stones are iron and where the hills may be quarried for copper. You will eat and have all you want, and you will bless Yahweh your God in the fine country which he has given you. Be careful not to forget Yahweh your God, by neglecting his commandments, customs and laws which I am laying down for you today. When you have eaten all you want, when you have built fine houses to live in, when you have seen your flocks and herds increase, your silver and gold abound and all your possessions grow great, do not become proud of heart. Do not then forget Yahweh your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the place of slave labor, who guided you through this vast and dreadful desert, a land of fiery snakes, scorpions, thirst, who in this waterless place brought you water out of the flinty rock, who in this desert fed you with manna unknown to your ancestors, to humble you and test you and so make your future the happier. Beware of thinking to yourself, my own strength and the might of my own hand have given me the power to act like this. Remember Yahweh your God. He was the one who gave you the strength to act effectively like this, thus keeping then, as today, the covenant which he swore to your ancestors. Be sure, if you forget Yahweh your God, if you follow other gods, if you serve them and bow down to them, I testify to you today, you will perish. Like the nations Yahweh is to destroy before you, so you yourselves will perish, for not having listened to the voice of Yahweh your God. Deuteronomy, chapter 9. Listen, Israel. Today you are about to cross the Jordan, to go and dispossess nations greater and stronger than yourself, and cities immense, with walls reaching to the sky. A people great and tall, these Anakim, as you know. You have heard the saying, who can stand up to the sons of Anak? Know then today that Yahweh your God himself will go ahead of you, destroying them like a devouring fire, and that he himself will subdue them before you so that you can dispossess and quickly make an end of them, as Yahweh has already said. Do not think to yourself, once Yahweh your God has driven them before you, Yahweh has brought me into possession of this country because I am upright, when Yahweh is dispossessing these nations for you, because they do wrong. You are not going into their country to take possession because of any right behavior or uprightness on your part. Rather, it is because of their wickedness that Yahweh is dispossessing these nations for you, and also to keep the pact which he swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Be clear about this. Yahweh is not giving you possession of this fine country because of any right conduct on your part, for you are an obstinate people. Remember, never forget how you provoked Yahweh your God in the desert. From the very day that you left Egypt until you arrived here, you have been rebels against Yahweh. At Horeb, you provoked Yahweh, and Yahweh was so angry with you that he was ready to destroy you. I had gone up the mountain to receive the stone tablets, the tablets of the covenant that Yahweh was making with you. I stayed 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain, with nothing to eat or drink. Yahweh gave me the 2 stone tablets inscribed by the finger of God, exactly corresponding to what Yahweh had said to you on the mountain, from the heart of the fire, on the day of the assembly. After 40 days and 40 nights, having given me the 2 stone tablets, the tablets of the covenant, Yahweh said to me, "Get up, go down quickly, for your people, whom you have brought out of Egypt, are corrupting one another. They have been quick to leave the way I marked out for them. They have cast themselves a metal idol." Yahweh then said to me, "I have seen this people, and what an obstinate people they are. Leave me, I am going to destroy them and wipe out their name under heaven, and I shall make you into a mightier and more numerous nation than they are." I went back down the mountain, which was blazing with fire, and in my hands were the 2 tablets of the covenant. When I looked, I saw that you had been sinning against Yahweh your God. You had cast yourselves a metal calf. You had been quick to leave the way marked out for you by Yahweh. I seized the 2 tablets and with my 2 hands threw them down and broke them before your eyes. Then I fell prostrate before Yahweh. As before, I spent 40 days and 40 nights with nothing to eat or drink, on account of all the sins which you had committed, by doing what was displeasing to Yahweh and thus arousing his anger. For I was afraid of this anger, of the fury which so roused Yahweh against you that he was ready to destroy you. And, once again, Yahweh heard my prayer. Yahweh was enraged with Aaron and was ready to destroy him too. I also pleaded for Aaron on that occasion. That work of sin, the calf you had made, I took and burned and broke to pieces. Having ground it to the finest dust, I threw its dust into the stream that comes down from the mountain. At Taberah and at Massa and Kibroth-Hattava, you provoked Yahweh. And when Yahweh, meaning you to leave Kadesh Barnea, said, "Go up and take possession of the country which I have given you," you rebelled against the command of Yahweh your God and would not believe him or listen to his voice. You have been rebels against Yahweh from the day he first knew you. So I fell prostrate before Yahweh and lay there those 40 days and 40 nights, Yahweh having said that he was going to destroy you. And I pleaded with Yahweh. "My Lord Yahweh," I said, "do not destroy your people, your heritage whom in your greatness you have redeemed, whom you have brought out of Egypt with your mighty hand. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Take no notice of this people's stubbornness, their wickedness, and their sin, so that, in the country from which you have brought us, it may not be said, 'Yahweh was not able to bring them to the country which he had promised them.' He hated them. That was why he brought them out, to slaughter them in the desert. But these are your people, your heritage, whom you yourself have brought out by your great power and your outstretched arm." Deuteronomy, chapter 10. Yahweh then said to me, "Cut 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and come up to me on the mountain. Make an ark of wood. On the tablets I shall inscribe the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Put them in the ark." So I made an ark of acacia wood, cut 2 stone tablets like the first, and went up the mountain with the 2 tablets in my hand. And he inscribed the tablets, as he had inscribed them before, with the 10 words which Yahweh had said to you on the mountain, from the heart of the fire, on the day of the assembly. Yahweh then gave them to me. I turned and came down from the mountain and put the tablets in the ark I had made, and there they stayed, as Yahweh had commanded me. The Israelites left the wells of the Bene Jaakan for Mosera, where Aaron died. He was buried there, and his son Eleazar succeeded him in the priesthood. From there, they set out for Gudgoda, and from Gudgoda for Jotbatha, an area rich in streams. Yahweh then set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of Yahweh's covenant, to stand in the presence of Yahweh, to serve him and to bless in his name, as they still do today. This is why Levi has no share or heritage with his brothers. Yahweh is his heritage, as Yahweh your God then told him. And as before, I stayed on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. And again Yahweh heard my prayer and agreed not to destroy you. And Yahweh said to me, Be on your way at the head of this people, so that they can go and take possession of the country which I swore to their ancestors that I would give them. And now, Israel, what does Yahweh your God ask of you? Only this, to fear Yahweh your God, to follow all his ways, to love him, to serve Yahweh your God with all your heart and all your soul, to keep the commandments and laws of Yahweh, which I am laying down for you today for your own good. Look, to Yahweh your God belong heaven and the heaven of heavens, the earth and everything on it. Yet it was on your ancestors, for love of them, that Yahweh set his heart to love them, and he chose their descendants after them, you yourselves, out of all nations, up to the present day. Circumcise your heart then and be obstinate no longer. For Yahweh your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, triumphant and terrible, free of favoritism, never to be bribed. He it is who sees justice done for the orphan and the widow, who loves the stranger and gives him food and clothing. Love the stranger then, for you were once strangers in Egypt. Yahweh your God is the one whom you must fear and serve. To him you must hold firm. In his name take your oaths. Him you must praise, he is your God. For you he has done these great and terrible things which you have seen for yourselves. And, although your ancestors numbered only 70 persons when they went down to Egypt, Yahweh your God has now made you as many as the stars of heaven. Deuteronomy, chapter 11. You must love Yahweh your God and always keep his observances, his laws, his customs, his commandments. You are the ones who have had the experience, not your children. They have not had the experience. They have not witnessed the lessons of Yahweh your God, his greatness, his mighty hand and his outstretched arm, the signs and the deeds which he performed in the heart of Egypt, against Pharaoh king of Egypt and his entire country, what he did to the armies of Egypt, to their horses and their chariots, by overwhelming them with the waters of the sea of reeds when they were pursuing you, and leaving no trace of them to this day. What he did for you in the desert until you arrived here. What he did to Dathan and Abiram the sons of Eliab the Reubenite, when, with all Israel standing round, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, with their families, their tents and all their supporters. All these great deeds of Yahweh you have seen with your own eyes. You must keep all the commandments which I enjoin on you today, so that you may have the strength to conquer the country into which you are about to cross, to take possession of it, and so that you may live long in the country which Yahweh promised on oath to bestow on your ancestors and their descendants, a country flowing with milk and honey. For the country which you are about to enter and make your own is not like the country of Egypt from which you have come, where, having done your sowing, you had to water the seed by foot, as though in a vegetable garden. No, the country which you are about to enter and make your own is a country of hills and valleys watered by the rain of heaven. Yahweh your God looks after this country. The eyes of Yahweh your God are always on it, from the beginning of the year to the end. Depend on it. If you faithfully obey the commandments I enjoin on you today, loving Yahweh your God and serving him with all your heart and all your soul, I shall give your country rain at the right time, rain in autumn, rain in spring, so that you can harvest your wheat, your new wine and your oil. I shall provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and you will eat to your heart's content. Beware of letting your heart be seduced. If you go astray, serve other gods and bow down to them, Yahweh's anger will be kindled against you. He will shut the heavens. There will be no more rain. The soil will not yield its produce, and in the fine country given you by Yahweh, you will quickly perish. Let these words of mine remain in your heart and in your soul. Fasten them on your hand as a sign and on your forehead as a headband. Teach them to your children and keep on telling them when you are sitting at home, when you are out and about, when you are lying down and when you are standing up. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, so that you and your children may live long in the country which Yahweh swore to your ancestors that he would give them for as long as there is a sky above the earth. For if you faithfully keep and observe all these commandments that I enjoin on you today, loving Yahweh your God, following all his ways and holding fast to him, Yahweh will dispossess all these nations before you, and you will dispossess nations greater and more powerful than yourselves. Wherever the sole of your foot treads will be yours. Your territory will run from the desert all the way to the Lebanon, and from the river Euphrates, as far as the western sea, will be your territory. No one will be able to resist you. Yahweh your God will make you feared and dreaded throughout the territory you tread, as he has promised you. Today, look, I am offering you a blessing and a curse. A blessing, if you obey the commandments of Yahweh your God which I enjoin on you today. A curse, if you disobey the commandments of Yahweh your God and leave the way which today I have marked out for you, by following other gods hitherto unknown to you. And when Yahweh your God has brought you into the country which you are about to enter and make your own, you must set the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. These mountains, as everyone knows, are on the other side of the Jordan on the westward road, in the territory of the Canaanites who live in the Arabah, opposite Gilgal, near the Oak of Moreh. For you are about to cross the Jordan, to enter and take possession of the country given you by Yahweh your God. You will possess it, you will live in it, and you must keep and observe all the laws and customs promulgated by me to you today. Deuteronomy, chapter 12. Now, these are the laws and customs which you must keep in the country which Yahweh, God of your ancestors, is giving you as yours, and which you must observe every day that you live in that country. You must completely destroy all the places where the nations you dispossess have served their gods, on high mountains, on hills, under any spreading tree. You must tear down their altars, smash their sacred stones, burn their sacred poles, hack to bits the statues of their gods and obliterate their name from that place. Not so must you behave towards Yahweh your God. You must seek Yahweh your God in the place which he will choose from all your tribes, there to set his name and give it a home. That is where you must go. That is where you must bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and offerings held high, your votive offerings and your voluntary offerings, and the firstborn of your herd and flock. And that is where you must eat in the presence of Yahweh your God, rejoicing over your labors, you and your households, because Yahweh your God has blessed you. You must not behave as we are behaving here today, each of you doing what he himself sees fit, since you have not yet come to the resting place and the heritage that Yahweh your God is going to give you. You are about to cross the Jordan and live in the country given you by Yahweh your God as your heritage. He will grant you peace from all the enemies surrounding you, and you will live in safety. To the place chosen by Yahweh your God as a home for his name, to that place you must bring all the things that I am laying down for you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and offerings held high, and all the best of your possessions dedicated by you to Yahweh. That is where you will rejoice in the presence of Yahweh your God, you and your sons and daughters, your serving men and women, and the Levite living in your community, since he has no share or heritage of his own among you. Take care you do not offer your burnt offerings in all the sacred places you see. Only in the place that Yahweh chooses in one of your tribes may you offer your burnt offerings and do all the things which I have commanded you. This notwithstanding, and whenever you wish, you may slaughter and eat meat wherever you live, as much as the blessing of Yahweh affords you. Clean or unclean may eat it, as though it were gazelle or deer. You will not, however, eat the blood, but will pour that like water on the ground. You must not eat the tithe of your wheat, of your new wine or of your oil, or the firstborn of your herd or flock, or any of your votive offerings or voluntary offerings, or your offerings held high to Yahweh, at home. You must eat these in the presence of Yahweh your God in the place Yahweh your God chooses, and there alone. You, your son and your daughter, your serving man and serving woman, and the Levite living in your community, expressing your joy in all your labors in the presence of Yahweh your God. As long as you live on your soil, be careful not to neglect the Levite. When Yahweh your God enlarges your territory as he has promised you, and you say, I should like to eat meat, if you want to eat meat you may eat as much as you like. If the place in which Yahweh your God chooses to set his name is too far away, you may slaughter any of your herd or flock that Yahweh has given you, as I have prescribed for you. You may eat as much of it as you please at home. But you must eat it as you would gazelle or deer. Clean and unclean may eat it together. Take care, however, not to eat the blood, since blood is life, and you must not eat the life with the meat. You must not eat it, but must pour it like water on the ground. You must not eat it, so that you, and your children after you, may prosper, doing what is right in Yahweh's eyes. But the holy things of yours and the things which you have dedicated, you must go and take to the place chosen by Yahweh. The burnt offerings of meat and blood must be presented on the altar of Yahweh your God, whereas in your sacrifices, the blood must be poured on the altar of Yahweh your God. The meat you yourselves may eat. Faithfully keep and obey all these orders which I am giving you, so that you and your children after you may prosper forever, doing what is good and right in the eyes of Yahweh your God. When Yahweh your God has annihilated the nations confronting you, whom you are going to dispossess, and when you have dispossessed them and made your home in their country, beware of being entrapped into copying them, after they have been destroyed to make way for you, and do not inquire about their gods, saying, How did these nations worship their gods? I am going to do the same too. This is not the way to treat Yahweh your God. For in honor of their gods they have done everything detestable that Yahweh hates. Yes, in honor of their gods, they even burn their own sons and daughters as sacrifices. Deuteronomy, chapter 13. Whatever I am now commanding you, you must keep and observe, adding nothing to it, taking nothing away. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you, offering you some sign or wonder, and the sign or wonder comes about, and if he then says to you, Let us follow other gods, hitherto unknown to you, and serve them, you must not listen to that prophet's words or to that dreamer's dreams. Yahweh your God is testing you to know if you love Yahweh your God with all your heart and all your soul. Yahweh your God is the one whom you must follow, him you must fear, his commandments you must keep, his voice you must obey, him you must serve, to him you must hold fast. That prophet or that dreamer of dreams must be put to death, since he has preached apostasy from Yahweh your God, who brought you out of Egypt and redeemed you from the place of slave labor. And he would have diverted you from the way in which Yahweh your God has commanded you to walk. You must banish this evil from among you. If your brother, the son of your father or of your mother, or your son or daughter, or the spouse whom you embrace, or your most intimate friend, tries secretly to seduce you, saying, Let us go and serve other gods, unknown to you or your ancestors before you, gods of the people surrounding you, whether near you or far away, anywhere throughout the world, you must not consent, you must not listen to him, you must show him no pity, you must not spare him or conceal his guilt. No, you must kill him, your hand must strike the first blow in putting him to death and the hands of the rest of the people following. You must stone him to death, since he has tried to divert you from Yahweh your God who brought you out of Egypt, from the place of slave labor. All Israel, hearing of this, will be afraid, and none of you will do such a wicked thing again. If you hear that in one of the towns which Yahweh your God has given you for a home, there are men, scoundrels from your own stock, who have led their fellow citizens astray, saying, Let us go and serve other gods, hitherto unknown to you, it is your duty to look into the matter, examine it, and inquire most carefully. If it is proved and confirmed that such a hateful thing has taken place among you, you must put the inhabitants of that town to the sword. You must lay it under the curse of destruction, the town and everything in it. You must pile up all its loot in the public square and burn the town and all its loot, offering it all to Yahweh your God. It is to be a ruin for all time, and never rebuilt. From what is thus put under the curse of destruction you must keep nothing back, so that Yahweh may turn from the ferocity of his anger and show you mercy, and have pity on you and increase your numbers, as he swore he would to your ancestors, on condition that you listen to the voice of Yahweh your God by keeping all his commandments which I am enjoining on you today, and by doing what is right in the eyes of Yahweh your God. Deuteronomy, chapter 14. You are children of Yahweh your God. You must not gash yourselves or shave your foreheads for the dead, for you are a people consecrated to Yahweh your God, and Yahweh has chosen you to be his own people from all the peoples on the earth. You must not eat anything disgusting. These are the animals you may eat: ox, sheep, goat, deer, gazelle, roebuck, ibex, antelope, oryx, mountain sheep. You may eat any animal that has a divided and cloven hoof, and that is a ruminant. Of those, however, that are ruminants and of those that have a divided and cloven hoof you may not eat the following: the camel, the hare, and the coney, which are ruminants but have no cloven hoof. You must class them as unclean. So also the pig, which though it has a cloven hoof is not a ruminant. You must class it as unclean. You must neither eat the meat of such animals nor touch their dead bodies. Of whatever lives in water you may eat the following: you may eat anything that has fins and scales. But you must not eat anything without fins and scales. You must class it as unclean. You may eat all clean birds, but the following birds you must not eat: the tawny vulture, the griffin, the osprey, the kite, and the several kinds of buzzard, all kinds of raven, the ostrich, the screech owl, the seagull, the several kinds of hawk, owl, barn owl, ibis, pelican, white vulture, cormorant, stork, the several kinds of heron, hoopoe, and bat. You are to class all winged insects as unclean and must not eat them. You may eat any clean fowl. You must not eat any animal that has died a natural death. You may give it to a resident foreigner to eat, or sell it to a foreigner. For you are a people consecrated to Yahweh your God. You must not boil a kid in its mother's milk. Every year you must take a tithe of what your fields produce from what you have sown, and, in the presence of Yahweh your God, in the place where he chooses to give his name a home, you must eat the tithe of your wheat, of your new wine, and of your oil, and the firstborn of your herd and flock, and by so doing, you will learn always to fear Yahweh your God. If the road is too long for you, if you cannot bring your tithe because the place in which Yahweh chooses to make a home for his name is too far away, when Yahweh your God has blessed you, you must convert it into money, and, with the money clasped in your hand, you must go to the place chosen by Yahweh your God. There you may spend the money on whatever you like: oxen, sheep, wine, fermented liquor, anything you please. There you must eat in the presence of Yahweh your God and rejoice, you and your household. Do not neglect the Levite living in your community, since he has no share or heritage of his own among you. At the end of every 3 years, you must take all the tithes of your harvests for that year and collect them in your community. Then the Levite, since he has no share or heritage of his own among you, the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow living in your community, will come and eat all they want. And so Yahweh your God will bless you in all the labors that you undertake. Deuteronomy, chapter 15. At the end of every 7 years, you must grant remission. The nature of the remission is as follows: any creditor holding a personal pledge obtained from his fellow must release him from it. He must not exploit his fellow or his brother once the latter has appealed to Yahweh for remission. A foreigner you may exploit, but you must remit whatever claim you have on your brother. There must then be no poor among you, for Yahweh will grant you his blessing in the country which Yahweh your God is giving you to possess as your heritage, only if you pay careful attention to the voice of Yahweh your God, by keeping and practicing all these commandments which I am enjoining on you today. If Yahweh your God blesses you as he has promised, You will be creditors to many nations but debtors to none. You will rule over many nations, and be ruled by none. Is there anyone poor among you, one of your brothers, in any town of yours in the country which Yahweh your God is giving you? Do not harden your heart or close your hand against that poor brother of yours, but be open-handed with him and lend him enough for his needs. Do not allow this mean thought in your heart: the 7th year, the year of remission, is near, and scowl at your poor brother and give him nothing. He could appeal against you to Yahweh, and you would incur guilt. When you give to him, you must give with an open heart. For this, Yahweh your God will bless you in all your actions and in all your undertakings. Of course, there will never cease to be poor people in the country, and that is why I am giving you this command. Always be open-handed with your brother, and with anyone in your country who is in need and poor. If your fellow Hebrew, man or woman, sells himself to you, he can serve you for 6 years. In the 7th year you must set him free, and in setting him free you must not let him go empty-handed. By way of present, you will load his shoulders with things from your flock, from your threshing floor and from your winepress. As Yahweh your God has blessed you, so you must give to him. Remember that you were once a slave in Egypt and that Yahweh your God redeemed you. That is why I am giving you this order today. But if he says to you, I do not want to leave you, because he loves you and your household and is happy with you, you must take an awl and drive it through his ear into the door, and he will be your servant forever. You must do the same to a female slave. Do not think it hard on you to have to give him his freedom. He is worth twice what a paid servant would cost you, and has served you for 6 years. And Yahweh your God will bless you in everything you do. You must consecrate every firstborn male from your herd and flock to Yahweh your God. You must not put the firstborn of your herd to work, or shear the firstborn of your flock. You must eat it, you and your household, each year, in the presence of Yahweh your God, in the place which Yahweh chooses. If it has any defect, if it is lame or blind, any serious defect, you must not sacrifice it to Yahweh your God. You will eat it at home, unclean and clean together, as you would gazelle or deer. Only you will not eat its blood, but pour that like water on the ground. Deuteronomy, chapter 16. Observe the month of Abib and celebrate the Passover for Yahweh your God, because it was in the month of Abib that Yahweh your God brought you out of Egypt by night. You must sacrifice a Passover from your flock or herd for Yahweh your God in the place where Yahweh chooses to give his name a home. You must not eat leavened bread with this. For 7 days you must eat it with unleavened bread, the bread of affliction, since you left Egypt in great haste. This is so that, as long as you live, you will remember the day you came out of Egypt. For 7 days no leaven must be found in any house throughout your territory, nor must any of the meat that you sacrifice in the evening of the first day be kept overnight until the next day. You must sacrifice the Passover not in any of the towns given you by Yahweh your God, but in the place where Yahweh your God chooses to give his name a home. That you must sacrifice the Passover in the evening at sunset, at the hour when you came out of Egypt. You will cook it and eat it in the place chosen by Yahweh your God. And in the morning you must return and go to your tents. For 6 days you will eat unleavened bread. On the 7th day there will be an assembly for Yahweh your God, and you must do no work. You must count 7 weeks, counting these 7 weeks from the time you begin to put your sickle into the standing corn. You will then celebrate the Feast of Weeks for Yahweh your God with the gift of a voluntary offering proportionate to the degree in which Yahweh your God has blessed you. You must rejoice in the presence of Yahweh your God, in the place where Yahweh your God chooses to give his name a home. You, your son and your daughter, your serving men and women, the Levite living in your community, the foreigner, the orphan and the widow living among you. Remember that you were once a slave in Egypt, and carefully observe these laws. You must celebrate the Feast of Shelters for 7 days, at the time when you gather in the produce of your threshing floor and winepress. You must rejoice at your feast, you, your son and your daughter, your serving men and women, the Levite, the foreigner, the orphan and the widow living in your community. For 7 days, You must celebrate the feast for Yahweh your God in the place chosen by Yahweh. For Yahweh your God will bless you in all your produce and in all your undertakings, so that you will have good reason to rejoice. 3 times a year all your menfolk must appear before Yahweh your God in the place chosen by him. At the feast of unleavened bread, at the feast of weeks, at the feast of shelters. No one must appear empty-handed before Yahweh, but each must give what he can, in proportion to the blessing which Yahweh your God has bestowed on you. You must appoint judges and scribes in each of the towns that Yahweh your God is giving you, for all your tribes. These are to mete out proper justice to the people. You must not pervert the law, you must be impartial. You will take no bribes, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and ruins the cause of the upright. Strict justice must be your ideal, so that you may live long in possession of the country given you by Yahweh your God. You must not plant a sacred pole of any wood whatsoever beside the altar which you erect for Yahweh your God, nor will you set up a standing stone, a thing Yahweh your God would abhor. Deuteronomy, chapter 17. To Yahweh your God you must sacrifice nothing from herd or flock that has any blemish or defect whatsoever, for Yahweh your God holds this detestable. If there is any one man or woman among you in any of the towns given you by Yahweh your God, who does what is wrong in the eyes of Yahweh your God by violating his covenant, who goes and serves other gods and worships them, or the sun or the moon or any of heaven's array, a thing I have forbidden, and this person is denounced to you, if after careful inquiry it is found true and confirmed that this hateful thing has been done in Israel, you must take the man or woman guilty of this evil deed outside your city gates, and there you must stone that man or woman to death. A death sentence may be passed only on the word of 2 witnesses or 3, and no one must be put to death on the word of 1 witness alone. The witness's hands must strike the first blow in putting the condemned to death, the rest of the people following. You must banish this evil from among you. If a case comes before you which is too difficult for you, a case of murder, conflicting claims, damage to property, any kind of dispute in your towns, you must make your way to the place chosen by Yahweh your God, and approach the Levitical priests and the judge then in office. They will hold an inquiry and let you know their sentence. You must abide by the verdict which they give you in this place chosen by Yahweh, and you will take care to carry out all their instructions. You will abide by the decision which they give you and by the sentence which they pronounce, not deviating to right or to left from the verdict which they have given you. If anyone presumes to disobey either the priest who is there in the service of Yahweh your God, or the judge, that person must die. You must banish this evil from Israel. And when the people hear of this, they will all be afraid and not act presumptuously any more. If having reached the country given by Yahweh your God and having taken possession of it and, while living there, you think, I should like to appoint a king to rule me, like all the surrounding nations, the king whom you appoint to rule you must be chosen by Yahweh your God. The appointment of a king must be made from your own brothers. On no account must you appoint as king some foreigner who is not a brother of yours. He must not, however, acquire more and more horses, or send the people back to Egypt with a view to increasing his cavalry, since Yahweh has told you, you must never go back that way again. Nor must he keep on acquiring more and more wives, for that could lead his heart astray. Nor must he acquire vast quantities of silver and gold. Once seated on his royal throne, and for his own use, he must write a copy of this law on a scroll, at the dictation of the Levitical priests. It must never leave him, and he must read it every day of his life and learn to fear Yahweh his God by keeping all the words of this law and observing these rules, so that he will not think himself superior to his brothers, and not deviate from these commandments either to right or to left. So doing, long will he occupy his throne, he and his sons, in Israel. Deuteronomy, chapter 18. The Levitical priests, the whole tribe of Levi, will be without share or heritage of their own in Israel. They will live on the foods offered to Yahweh and on his heritage. Levi will have no heritage of his own among his brothers. Yahweh will be his heritage, as he has promised him. This is what is due to the priests from the people, from those who offer an ox or a sheep in sacrifice. The priest must be given the shoulder, the cheeks, and the stomach. You must give him the first fruits of your wheat, of your new wine, and of your oil, as well as the first fruits of your sheep shearing. For Yahweh your God has chosen him from all your tribes to stand before Yahweh your God, to do the duties of the sacred ministry, and to bless in Yahweh's name, him and his sons for all time. If a Levite living in one of your towns anywhere in Israel decides to move to the place chosen by Yahweh, he shall minister there in the name of Yahweh his God like all his fellow Levites who stand ministering there in the presence of Yahweh, eating equal shares with them, what he has from the sale of his patrimony notwithstanding. When you have entered the country given you by Yahweh your God, you must not learn to imitate the detestable practices of the nations there already. There must never be anyone among you who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire of sacrifice, who practices divination, who is soothsayer, augur or sorcerer, weaver of spells, consulter of ghosts or mediums, or necromancer. For anyone who does these things is detestable to Yahweh your God. It is because of these detestable practices that Yahweh your God is driving out these nations before you. You must be faultless in your relationship with Yahweh your God. For these nations whom you are going to dispossess have listened to soothsayers and mediums. But Yahweh your God does not permit you to do this. From among yourselves, from among your own brothers, Yahweh your God will raise up a prophet like me. You will listen to him. This is exactly what you asked Yahweh your God to do, at Horeb, on the day of the assembly, when you said, "Never let me hear the voice of Yahweh my God or see this great fire again, or I shall die." Then Yahweh said to me, "What they have said is well said. From their own brothers I shall raise up a prophet like yourself. I shall put my words into his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command him. Anyone who refuses to listen to my words, spoken by him in my name, will have to render an account to me. But the prophet who presumes to say something in my name which I have not commanded him to say, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet must die." You may be privately wondering, how are we to tell that a prophecy does not come from Yahweh? When a prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh and the thing does not happen and the word is not fulfilled, then it has not been said by Yahweh. The prophet has spoken presumptuously. You have nothing to fear from him. Deuteronomy, chapter 19. When Yahweh your God has annihilated the nations whose country Yahweh your God is going to give you, and you have dispossessed them and are living in their towns and in their houses, you must set aside 3 towns, centrally placed in the country which Yahweh your God is giving you for your own. You will keep the approaches to them in good order, dividing the area of the country which Yahweh your God is giving you as your heritage into 3 parts, so that any killer can flee to these towns. Here is an example of how someone may save his life by fleeing to them. If anyone has struck his fellow accidentally, without any previous feud with him, for example, he goes with his fellow into the forest to cut wood. His arm swings the axe to fell a tree. The head slips off the handle and strikes his companion dead. That man may take refuge in one of these towns and save his life. It must not be allowed that the avenger of blood, in the heat of his anger, should pursue the killer, and that the length of the road should help him to overtake and wound him fatally. For the man has not deserved to die, having had no previous feud with his victim. Hence I am giving you this order. You must set aside 3 towns, and if Yahweh your God enlarges your territory, as he swore to your ancestors that he would, and gives you the whole country which he promised to give to your ancestors, provided that you keep and observe all the commandments which I am enjoining on you today, loving Yahweh your God and always following his ways, then, to those 3 towns you will add 3 more. In this way, innocent blood will not be shed in the country which Yahweh your God is going to give you as your heritage. Otherwise you would incur blood guilt. But if it happens that a man has a feud with his fellow and lies in wait for him and attacks him and fatally wounds him and he dies, and the man takes refuge in one of these towns, the elders of his own town must send there and have him taken and handed over to the avenger of blood, to be put to death. You must show him no pity. You must banish the shedding of innocent blood from Israel, and then you will prosper. You must not displace your neighbor's boundary mark. positioned by men of old in the heritage soon to be yours, in the country which Yahweh your God is about to give you. A single witness will not suffice to convict anyone of a crime or offense of any kind. Whatever the misdemeanor, the evidence of 2 witnesses or 3 is required to sustain the charge. If someone gives false evidence against anyone, laying a charge of apostasy, both parties to this dispute before Yahweh must appear before the priests and judges then in office. The judges will make a careful inquiry, and if it turns out that the witness is a liar and has made a false accusation against his brother, you must treat the witness as he would have treated his brother. You must banish this evil from among you. The rest, hearing of this, will be afraid and never again do such an evil thing among you. You must show no pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Deuteronomy, chapter 20. When you go to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots and an army greater than your own, you must not be afraid of them. Yahweh your God is with you, he who brought you out of Egypt. When you are about to join battle, the priest must come forward and address the people. He must say to them, "Listen, Israel. Today you are about to join battle with your enemies. Do not be faint-hearted. Let there be no fear or trembling or alarm as you face them. Yahweh your God is marching with you, to fight your enemies for you and make you victorious." The scribes will then address the people, as follows. Has anyone built a new house and not yet dedicated it? Let him go home, in case he dies in battle and someone else performs the dedication. Has anyone planted a vineyard and not yet enjoyed its fruit? Let him go home, in case he dies in battle and someone else enjoys its fruit. Has anyone contracted to marry a girl and not yet married her? Let him go home, in case he dies in battle and someone else marries her. Finally, the scribes will say to the people, Is anyone frightened or faint-hearted? Let him go home, in case he makes his brothers faint-hearted too. Then, when the scribes have finished speaking to the people, commanders will be appointed to lead them. When you advance on a town to attack it, first offer it peace terms. If it accepts these and opens its gates to you, all the people inside will owe you forced labor and work for you. But if it refuses peace and gives battle, you must besiege it. Yahweh your God having handed it over to you, you will put the whole male population to the sword. But the women, children, livestock and whatever the town contains by way of spoil, you may take for yourselves as booty. You will feed on the spoils of the enemies whom Yahweh your God has handed over to you. That is how you will treat towns far away and not belonging to the nations near you. But as regards the towns of those peoples whom Yahweh your God is giving you as your heritage, you must not spare the life of any living thing. Instead, you must lay them under the curse of destruction. Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites and Jebusites, as Yahweh your God has commanded, so that they may not teach you to do all the detestable things which they do to honor their gods. In doing these, you would sin against Yahweh your God. If, when attacking a town, you have to besiege it for a long time before you capture it, you must not destroy its trees by taking the axe to them. Eat their fruit, but do not cut them down. Is the tree in the fields human that you should besiege it too? Any trees, however, which you know are not fruit trees, you may destroy and cut down and use to build siege works against the hostile town until it falls. Deuteronomy, chapter 21. If in the country which Yahweh your God gives you as your possession, a victim of murder is found lying in the open country, and it is not known who has killed that person, your elders and scribes must measure the distance between the victim and the surrounding towns, and establish which town is the nearest to the victim. The elders of that town must then take a heifer that has not yet been put to work or used as a draft animal under the yoke. The elders of that town must bring the heifer down to a permanently flowing river, to a spot that has been neither plowed nor sown, and there by the river they must break the heifer's neck. The priests, the sons of Levi, will then step forward, these being the men whom Yahweh your God has chosen to serve him and to bless in Yahweh's name, and it being their business to settle all cases of dispute or of violence. All the elders of the town nearest to the victim of murder must then wash their hands in the stream over the slaughtered heifer. They must pronounce these words, "Our hands have not shed this blood, and our eyes have seen nothing. O Yahweh, forgive your people Israel whom you have redeemed, and let no innocent blood be shed among your people Israel. May this bloodshed be forgiven them. You must banish all shedding of innocent blood from among you, if you mean to do what is right in the eyes of Yahweh. When you go to war against your enemies and Yahweh your God delivers them into your power and you take prisoners, and among the prisoners you see a beautiful woman, and you fall in love with her, and you take her to be your wife and bring her home. She must shave her head and cut her nails, and take off her prisoner's garb. She must stay inside your house and mourn her father and mother for a full month. You may then go to her and be a husband to her, and she will be your wife. Should she cease to please you, you will let her go where she wishes, not selling her for money. You must not make any profit out of her, since you have exploited her. If a man has two wives, one loved and the other unloved, and the loved one and the unloved both bear him children, and if the firstborn son is of the unloved wife, when the man comes to bequeath his goods to his sons, he may not treat the son of the wife whom he loves as the firstborn, at the expense of the son of the wife whom he does not love, the true firstborn. As his firstborn he must acknowledge the son of the wife whom he does not love, giving him a double share of his estate. This son being the firstfruit of his vigor, the right of the firstborn is his. If a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not listen to the voice either of his father or of his mother, and, even when they punish him, still will not pay attention to them, his father and mother must take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his town at the gate of that place. To the elders of his town, they will say, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious and will not listen to us. He is a wastrel and a drunkard." All his fellow citizens must then stone him to death. You must banish this evil from among you. All Israel, hearing of this, will be afraid. If a man guilty of a capital offense is to be put to death, and you hang him from a tree, his body must not remain on the tree overnight. You must bury him the same day, since anyone hanged is a curse of God, and you must not bring pollution on the soil which Yahweh your God is giving you as your heritage. Deuteronomy, chapter 22. If you see your brother's ox or one of his sheep straying, you must not disregard it. You must take it back to your brother. And if he is not close at hand or you do not know who he is, you must take it home with you and keep it by you until your brother comes to look for it. You will then return it to him. You must do the same with his donkey, the same with his cloak, the same with anything that your brother loses and that you find. You must not disregard it. If you see your brother's donkey or ox fall over on the road, you must not disregard it, but must help your brother get it on its feet again. A woman must not dress like a man, nor a man like a woman. Anyone who does this is detestable to Yahweh your God. If, when out walking, you come across a bird's nest, in a tree or on the ground, with chicks or eggs and the mother bird sitting on the chicks or the eggs, you must not take the mother as well as the chicks. Let the mother go. The young you may take for yourself. Thus will you have prosperity and long life. When you build a new house, you must give your roof a parapet. Then your house will not incur blood vengeance, should anyone fall off the top. You must not sow any other crop in your vineyard, or the whole yield may become forfeit, both the crop you have sown and the yield of your vines. You must not plow with ox and donkey together. You must not wear clothing woven part of wool, part of linen. You must make tassels for the four corners of the cloak in which you wrap yourself. If a man marries a woman, has sexual intercourse with her and then, turning against her, taxes her with misconduct and publicly defames her by saying, "I married this woman, and when I had sexual intercourse with her I did not find evidence of her virginity," the girl's father and mother must take the evidence of her virginity and produce it before the elders of the town, at the gate. To the elders, the girl's father will say, "I gave this man my daughter for a wife, and he has turned against her, and now he taxes her with misconduct, saying, I have found no evidence of virginity in your daughter. Here is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. They must then display the cloth to the elders of the town. The elders of the town in question will have the man arrested and flogged, and fine him 100 silver shekels for publicly defaming a virgin of Israel, and give this money to the girl's father. She will remain his wife. As long as he lives, he may not divorce her. But if the accusation that the girl cannot show evidence of virginity is substantiated, she must be taken out, and at the door of her father's house her fellow citizens must stone her to death for having committed an infamy in Israel by bringing disgrace on her father's family. You must banish this evil from among you. If a man is caught having sexual intercourse with another man's wife, both must be put to death, the man who has slept with her and the woman herself. You must banish this evil from Israel. If a virgin is engaged to a man, and another man encounters her in the town and has sexual intercourse with her, you will take them both to the gate of the town in question and stone them to death. The girl, for not having called for help in the town. The man, for having exploited his fellow citizen's wife. You must banish this evil from among you. But if the man ran into the betrothed girl in the open country and slept with her, having taken her by force, her ravisher alone must die. You must do nothing to the girl. She has not committed a capital offense. The case is like that of a man who attacks and kills his fellow. Since he came across her in the open country, the betrothed girl may have called out, without anyone's coming to her rescue. If a man meets a young virgin who is not betrothed and seizes her, sleeps with her and is caught in the act, her ravisher must give the girl's father 50 silver shekels. Since he has exploited her, she must be his wife, and as long as he lives, he may not divorce her. Deuteronomy, chapter 23. A man must not take his father's wife. He must not withdraw the skirt of his father's cloak from her. A man whose testicles have been crushed or whose male member has been cut off must not be admitted to the assembly of Yahweh. No half-breed may be admitted to the assembly of Yahweh. Not even his descendants to the 10th generation may be admitted to the assembly of Yahweh. No Ammonite or Moabite may be admitted to the assembly of Yahweh. Not even his descendants to the 10th generation may be admitted to the assembly of Yahweh, and this is for all time. Since they did not come to meet you with food and drink when you were on your way out of Egypt, and even hired Balaam son of Beer to oppose you by cursing you, from Pethor in Aram Naharaim. But Yahweh your God refused to listen to Balaam, and Yahweh your God turned the curse on you into a blessing, because Yahweh your God loved you. Never, as long as you live, must you seek their welfare or their prosperity. You must not regard the Edomite as detestable, for he is your brother. You must not regard the Egyptian as detestable, since you were once a foreigner in his country. The 3rd generation of children born to these may be admitted to the assembly of Yahweh. When you are in camp, at war with your enemies, you must avoid anything bad. If any one of you is unclean by reason of a nocturnal emission, he must leave and not come back into camp, but towards evening wash himself, and return to camp at sunset. You must have a latrine outside the camp and go out to this. You must have a trowel in your equipment, and, when you squat outside, you must scrape a hole with it, then turn round and cover up your excrement. For Yahweh your God goes about the inside of your camp to guard you and put your enemies at your mercy. Your camp must therefore be a holy place. Yahweh must not see anything indecent there, or he will desert you. You must not allow a master to imprison a slave who has escaped from him and come to you. Let him make his home with you and yours, wherever he pleases in whichever of your towns he prefers. You must not molest him. There must be no sacred prostitute among the women of Israel, and no sacred prostitute among the men of Israel. You must not bring the wages of a prostitute or the earnings of a dog to the house of Yahweh your God. Whatever vow you may have made, both are detestable to Yahweh your God. You must not lend on interest to your brother, whether the loan be of money, of food, or of anything else that may earn interest. You may demand interest on a loan to a foreigner, but you must not demand interest from your brother, so that Yahweh your God may bless you in all your labors, in the country which you are about to enter and make your own. If you make a vow to Yahweh your God, you must not be slack about fulfilling it. Yahweh your God will certainly hold you answerable for it, and you will incur guilt. If, however, you make no vow, you do not incur guilt. Whatever passes your lips you must keep to, and the vow that you have made to Yahweh, your generous God, you must fulfill. If you go into your neighbor's vineyard, you may eat as many grapes as you please, but you must not put any in your basket. If you go into your neighbor's standing corn, you may pick ears by hand, but you must not put a sickle into your neighbor's corn. Deuteronomy, chapter 24. Suppose a man has taken a wife and consummated the marriage, but she has not pleased him, and he has found some impropriety of which to accuse her. He has therefore made out a writ of divorce for her and handed it to her, and then dismissed her from his house. She leaves his home and goes away to become the wife of another man. Then suppose this second man who has married her takes a dislike to her and makes out a writ of divorce for her and hands it to her and dismisses her from his house, or if this other man who took her as his wife dies, her first husband, who has repudiated her, may not take her back as his wife now that she has been made unclean in this way. For that is detestable in Yahweh's eyes, and you must not bring guilt on the country which Yahweh your God is giving you as your heritage. If a man is newly married, he must not join the army, nor must he be pestered at home. He must be left at home, free of all obligations for 1 year, to make his new wife happy. No one may take a mill or a millstone in pledge. That would be to take life itself in pledge. If anyone is caught, having kidnapped one of his brother Israelites, whether he makes him his slave or sells him, that thief must die. You must banish this evil from among you. In a case of a virulent skin disease, take care you faithfully observe and exactly carry out everything that the Levitical priests direct you to do. You must keep and observe everything that I have commanded them. Remember what Yahweh your God did to Miriam when you were on your way out of Egypt. If you are making your brother a loan on pledge, you must not go into his house and seize the pledge, whatever it may be. You must stay outside, and the man to whom you are making the loan must bring the pledge out to you. And if the man is poor, you must not go to bed with his pledge in your possession. You must return it to him at sunset so that he can sleep in his cloak and bless you, and it will be an upright action on your part in God's view. You must not exploit a poor and needy wage earner, be he one of your brothers or a foreigner resident in your community. You must pay him his wages each day, not allowing the sun to set before you do, since he, being poor, needs them badly. Otherwise he may appeal to Yahweh against you, and you would incur guilt. Parents may not be put to death for their children, nor children for parents, but each must be put to death for his own crime. You must not infringe the rights of the foreigner or the orphan. You must not take a widow's clothes in pledge. Remember that you were once a slave in Egypt and that Yahweh your God redeemed you from that. That is why I am giving you this order. If, when reaping the harvest in your field, you overlook a sheaf in that field, do not go back for it. The foreigner, the orphan and the widow shall have it, so that Yahweh your God may bless you in all your undertakings. When you beat your olive tree, you must not go over the branches twice. The foreigner, the orphan and the widow shall have the rest. When you harvest your vineyard, you must not pick it over a second time. The foreigner, the orphan and the widow shall have the rest. Remember that you were once a slave in Egypt. That is why I am giving you this order. Deuteronomy, chapter 25. If people fall out, they must go to court for judgment. The judges must declare the one who is right to be in the right, the one who is wrong to be in the wrong. If the one who is in the wrong deserves a flogging, the judge must have him laid on the ground and flogged in his presence, the number of strokes proportionate to his offense. He may impose 40 strokes but no more. Otherwise, by the infliction of more, serious injury may be caused and your brother be humiliated before you. You must not muzzle an ox when it is treading out the corn. If brothers live together and one of them dies childless, the dead man's wife may not marry a stranger outside the family. Her husband's brother must come to her and, exercising his duty as brother, make her his wife, and the first son she bears must assume the dead brother's name. By this means his name will not be obliterated from Israel. But if the man declines to take his brother's wife, she must go to the elders at the gate and say, I have no brother-in-law willing to perpetuate his brother's name in Israel. He declines to exercise his duty as brother in my favor. The elders of the town must summon the man and talk to him. If, on appearing before them, he says, I refuse to take her, then the woman to whom he owes duty as brother must go up to him in the presence of the elders, take the sandal off his foot, spit in his face, and pronounce the following words. This is what is done to the man who refuses to restore his brother's house, and his family must henceforth be known in Israel as house of the unshod. If, when two men are fighting, the wife of one intervenes to protect her husband from the other's blows by reaching out and seizing the other by his private parts, you must cut off her hand and show no pity. You must not keep two different weights in your bag, one heavy, one light. You must not keep two different measures in your house, one large, one small. You must keep one weight full and accurate so that you may have long life in the country given you by Yahweh your God. For anyone who does things of this kind and acts dishonestly is detestable to Yahweh your God. Remember how Amalek treated you when you were on your way out of Egypt. He met you on your way, and after you had gone by, he fell on you from the rear and cut off the stragglers. When you were faint and weary, he had no fear of God. When Yahweh your God has granted you peace from all the enemies surrounding you, in the country given you by Yahweh your God to own as your heritage, you must blot out the memory of Amalek under heaven. Do not forget. Deuteronomy, chapter 26. When you have entered the country which Yahweh your God is giving you as heritage, when you have taken possession of it and are living in it, you must set aside the first fruits of all the produce of the soil raised by you in your country, given you by Yahweh your God. You must put these in a basket and go to the place where Yahweh your God chooses to give his name a home. You will go to the priest then in office and say to him, Today I declare to Yahweh my God that I have reached the country which Yahweh swore to our ancestors that he would give us. The priest will then take the basket from your hand and lay it before the altar of Yahweh your God. In the presence of Yahweh your God, you will then pronounce these words. My father was a wandering Aramean, who went down to Egypt with a small group of men, and stayed there, until he there became a great, powerful, and numerous nation. The Egyptians ill-treated us. They oppressed us and inflicted harsh slavery on us. But we called on Yahweh, God of our ancestors. Yahweh heard our voice and saw our misery, our toil and our oppression. And Yahweh brought us out of Egypt with mighty hand and outstretched arm, with great terror, and with signs and wonders. He brought us here and has given us this country, a country flowing with milk and honey. Hence, I now bring the first fruits of the soil that you, Yahweh, have given me. You will then lay them before Yahweh your God, and prostrate yourself in the presence of Yahweh your God. You must then rejoice in all the good things that Yahweh your God has bestowed on you and your family, you, the Levite and the foreigner living with you. In the third year, the tithing year, when you have finished taking the tithe of your whole income and have given it to the Levite, the foreigner, the orphan and the widow, so that, in your towns, they may eat to their heart's content, in the presence of Yahweh your God, you must say, I have cleared my house of what was consecrated. Yes, I have given it to the Levite, the foreigner, the orphan and the widow, in accordance with all the commandments you have imposed on me, neither going beyond your commandments nor neglecting them. When in mourning, I have not eaten any of it. When unclean, I have taken none of it away. I have given none of it for the dead. I have obeyed the voice of Yahweh my God, and I have behaved in every way as you have commanded me. Look down from your holy dwelling, from heaven, and bless your people Israel and the country which you have given us, as you swore to our ancestors, a country flowing with milk and honey. Yahweh your God commands you today to observe these laws and customs. You must keep and observe them with all your heart and with all your soul. Today you have obtained this declaration from Yahweh, that he will be your God, but only if you follow his ways, keep his statutes, his commandments, his customs, and listen to his voice. And today Yahweh has obtained this declaration from you, that you will be his own people, as he has said, but only if you keep all his commandments. Then for praise and renown and honor, he will raise you higher than every other nation he has made, and you will be a people consecrated to Yahweh, as he has promised. Deuteronomy, chapter 27. Moses and the elders of Israel gave the people this command: Keep all the commandments which I am laying down for you today. After you have crossed the Jordan into the country which Yahweh your God is giving you, you must set up tall stones, coat them with lime, and on them write all the words of this law. When you have crossed and entered the country which Yahweh your God is giving you, a country flowing with milk and honey, as Yahweh, God of your ancestors, has promised you. When you have crossed the Jordan, you must erect these stones on Mount Ebal, as I command you today, and coat them with lime. There, for Yahweh your God, you must build an altar of stones, on which no iron has been used. You must build the altar of Yahweh your God of rough stones, and on this altar you will present burnt offerings to Yahweh your God, and immolate communion sacrifices and eat them there, rejoicing in the presence of Yahweh your God. On these stones you must write all the words of this law. Cut them carefully. Moses and the Levitical priests then said to all Israel, Be silent, Israel, and listen. Today you have become a people for Yahweh your God. You must listen to the voice of Yahweh your God and observe the commandments and laws which I am laying down for you today. That day Moses gave the people this order: When you have crossed the Jordan, the following will stand on Mount Gerizim to bless the people: Simeon and Levi, Judah and Issachar, Joseph and Benjamin. And the following will stand on Mount Ebal for the curse: Reuben, Gad and Asher, Zebulun, Dan and Naphtali. The Levites will then speak, proclaiming loudly to all the Israelites, Accursed be anyone who makes a carved or cast idol, a thing detestable to Yahweh, a workman's artifact, and sets it up in secret. And the people are all to respond by saying, Amen. Accursed be anyone who treats father or mother dishonorably. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who displaces a neighbor's boundary mark. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who leads the blind astray on the road. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who violates the rights of the foreigner, the orphan and the widow. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who has sexual intercourse with his father's wife and withdraws the skirt of his father's cloak from her. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who has sexual intercourse with any kind of animal. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who has sexual intercourse with his sister, the daughter of his father or of his mother. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who has sexual intercourse with his mother-in-law. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who secretly strikes down his neighbor. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who accepts a bribe to take an innocent life. And the people must all say, Amen. Accursed be anyone who does not make the words of this law effective by putting them into practice. And the people must all say, Amen. Deuteronomy, chapter 28. But if you faithfully obey the voice of Yahweh your God, by keeping and observing all his commandments, which I am laying down for you today, Yahweh your God will raise you higher than every other nation in the world, and all these blessings will befall and overtake you, for having obeyed the voice of Yahweh your God. You will be blessed in the town and blessed in the countryside. Blessed, the offspring of your body, the yield of your soil, the yield of your livestock, the young of your cattle and the increase of your flocks. Blessed, your basket and your kneading trough. You will be blessed in coming home, and blessed in going out. The enemies who attack you, Yahweh will defeat before your eyes. They will advance on you from one direction and flee from you in 7. Yahweh will command blessedness to be with you, on your barns and on all your undertakings, and he will bless you in the country given you by Yahweh your God. From you Yahweh will make a people consecrated to himself, as he has sworn to you. if you keep the commandments of Yahweh your God and follow his ways. The peoples of the world, seeing that you bear Yahweh's name, will all be afraid of you. Yahweh will make you abound in possessions. In the offspring of your body, in the yield of your cattle and in the yield of your soil, in the country which he swore to your ancestors that he would give you. For you Yahweh will open his treasury of rain, the heavens, to give your country its rain at the right time, and to bless all your labors. You will make many nations your subjects, yet you will be subject to none. Yahweh will put you at the head, not at the tail. You will always be on top and never underneath, if you listen to the commandments of Yahweh your God, which I am laying down for you today, and then keep them and put them into practice, not deviating to right or to left from any of the words which I am laying down for you today, by following other gods and serving them. But if you do not obey the voice of Yahweh your God, and do not keep and observe all his commandments and laws which I am laying down for you today, then all these curses will befall and overtake you. You will be accursed in the town and accursed in the countryside. Accursed, your basket and your kneading trough. Accursed, the offspring of your body, the yield of your soil, the young of your cattle and the increase of your flock. You will be accursed in coming home, and accursed in going out. Yahweh will send a curse on you, a spell, an imprecation on all your labors until you have been destroyed and quickly perish, because of your perverse behavior, for having deserted me. Yahweh will fasten the plague on you, until it has exterminated you from the country which you are about to enter and make your own. Yahweh will strike you down with consumption, fever, inflammation, burning fever, drought, wind blast, mildew, and these will pursue you to your ruin. The heavens above you will be brass, the earth beneath you iron. Your country's rain Yahweh will turn into dust and sand. It will fall on you from the heavens until you perish. Yahweh will have you defeated by your enemies. You will advance on them from one direction and flee from them in seven, and you will be a terrifying object lesson to all the kingdoms of the world. Your carcass will be carrion for all wild birds and all wild animals, with no one to scare them away. Yahweh will strike you down with Egyptian ulcers, with swellings in the groin, with scurvy and the itch, for which you will find no cure. Yahweh will strike you down with madness, blindness, distraction of mind, until you grope your way at noon like a blind man groping in the dark, and your steps will lead you nowhere. You will never be anything but exploited and plundered, with no one to save you. Get engaged to a woman, another man will have her. Build a house, you will not live in it. Plant a vineyard, you will not gather its first fruits. Your ox will be slaughtered before your eyes, and you will eat none of it. Your donkey will be carried off in front of you and not be returned to you. Your sheep will be given to your enemies, and no one will come to your help. Your sons and daughters will be handed over to another people, and every day you will wear your eyes out watching for them, while your hands are powerless. A nation hitherto unknown to you will eat the yield of your soil and of all your hard work. You will never be anything but exploited and crushed. You will be driven mad by the sights you will see. Yahweh will strike you down with foul ulcers on knee and leg, for which you will find no cure, from the sole of your foot to the top of your head. Yahweh will send away both you and the king whom you have appointed to rule you to a nation unknown either to you or to your ancestors, and there you will serve other gods, made of wood and stone, and you will be the astonishment, the byword, the laughingstock of all the peoples where Yahweh is taking you. You will cast seed in plenty on the fields, but harvest little, since the locust will devour it. You will plant and till your vineyards, but not drink the wine or gather the grapes, since the grub will eat them up. You will grow olive trees throughout your territory, but not anoint yourself with the oil, since your olive trees will be cut down. You will father sons and daughters, but they will not belong to you, since they will go into captivity. All your trees and the whole yield of your soil will be the prey of insects. The foreigners living with you will rise higher and higher at your expense, while you yourself sink lower and lower. You will be subject to them, not they to you. They will be the ones at the head, and you the one at the tail. All these curses will befall you, pursue you and overtake you until you have been destroyed. for not having obeyed the voice of Yahweh your God by keeping his commandments and laws which he has laid down for you. They will be a sign and a wonder over you and your descendants forever. For not having joyfully and with happy hearts served Yahweh your God, despite the abundance of everything, you will have to serve the enemy whom Yahweh will send against you, in hunger, thirst, lack of clothing and total privation. He will put an iron yoke on your neck, until he has destroyed you. Against you Yahweh will raise a distant nation from the ends of the earth like an eagle taking wing. A nation whose language you do not understand, a nation grim of face, with neither respect for the old, nor pity for the young. He will eat the yield of your cattle and the yield of your soil until you have been destroyed. He will leave you neither wheat, nor wine, nor oil, nor the young of your cattle, nor increase of your flock, until he has made an end of you. He will besiege you inside all your towns until your loftiest and most strongly fortified walls collapse, on which, throughout your country, you have relied. He will besiege you inside all the towns throughout your country, given you by Yahweh your God. During the siege and in the distress to which your enemy will reduce you, you will eat the offspring of your own body, the flesh of the sons and daughters given you by Yahweh your God. The gentlest and tenderest of your men will scowl at his brother, and at the wife whom he embraces, and at his remaining children, not willing to give any of them any of his own children's flesh, which he is eating. Because of the siege and the distress to which your enemy will reduce you in all your towns, he will have nothing left. The most refined and fastidious of your women, so refined, so fastidious that she has never ventured to set the sole of her foot to the ground, will scowl at the husband whom she embraces, and at her son and daughter, and at the afterbirth when it leaves her womb, and at the child to which she has given birth, she will hide away and eat them. So complete will be the starvation resulting from the siege and the distress to which your enemy will reduce you in all your towns. If you do not keep and observe all the words of this law, which are written in this book, in the fear of this glorious and awe-inspiring name, Yahweh your God, Yahweh will strike you down with monstrous plagues, you and your descendants, with plagues grievous and lasting, diseases pernicious and enduring. He will afflict you with all the maladies of Egypt which you used to dread, and they will fasten on you. What is more, Yahweh will afflict you with all the plagues and all the diseases not mentioned in the book of this law, until you have been destroyed. There will only be a small group of you left, you who were once as numerous as the stars of heaven. For not having obeyed the voice of Yahweh your God, just as Yahweh used to delight in making you happy and in making your numbers grow, so will he take delight in ruining you and destroying you. You will be torn from the country which you are about to enter and make your own. Yahweh will scatter you throughout every people, from one end of the earth to the other. There you will serve other gods made of wood and stone, hitherto unknown either to you or to your ancestors. Among these nations there will be no repose for you, no rest for the sole of your foot. There Yahweh will give you a quaking heart, weary eyes, halting breath. Your life ahead of you will hang in doubt. You will be afraid day and night, uncertain of your life. In the morning you will say, "How I wish it were evening." And in the evening you will say, "How I wish it were morning." Such terror will grip your heart and such sights you will see. Yahweh will send you back to Egypt, either by ship or by a road which I promised you would never see again. And there you will want to offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as serving men and women, but no one will buy you. These are the words of the covenant which Yahweh ordered Moses to make with the Israelites in Moab, in addition to the covenant which he had made with them at Horeb. Deuteronomy, chapter 29. Moses called all Israel together and said to them, "You have seen everything that Yahweh did before your eyes in Egypt, to Pharaoh, to his servants and to his whole country, the great ordeals which you yourselves witnessed, those signs and the great wonders. But until today Yahweh has not given you a heart to understand, eyes to see, or ears to hear. I have been leading you for 40 years in the desert, yet the clothes which you have been wearing have not worn out, nor have the sandals on your feet. You have had no bread to eat, you have had no wine or fermented liquor to drink, so that you would learn that I, Yahweh am your God. When you reach this place, Sihon king of Heshbon and Og king of Bashan came out to do battle against us. We defeated them. We conquered their country and gave it as heritage to Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. Keep the words of this covenant, put them into practice, and you will thrive in everything you do. All of you are standing here today in the presence of Yahweh your God. Your tribal leaders, your elders, your scribes, all the men of Israel, with your children and your wives, and the foreigner too who is in your camp, be he your woodcutter or your water carrier. And you are about to pass into the covenant of Yahweh your God, sworn with imprecation, which he has made with you today, and by which, today, he makes you a nation for himself, and he himself becomes a God to you, as he has promised you, and as he swore to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not only on your behalf am I today making this covenant and pronouncing this solemn curse, not only on behalf of those standing here with us in the presence of Yahweh our God today, but also on behalf of those not here with us today. Yes, you know the people with whom we used to live in Egypt, and those through whose countries we have traveled, the nations through whom we have passed. You have seen their abominations and their idols made of wood and stone, silver and gold, which were there. Let there be no man or woman of you, no clan or tribe, whose heart turns away from Yahweh your God today, to go and serve the gods of these nations. Among you let there be no root which bears poison or wormwood. If, after hearing this imprecation, anyone, blessing himself, should say in his heart, I shall do well enough if I follow the dictates of my heart. Much water drives away thirst. Yahweh will not pardon him. The wrath and jealousy of Yahweh will blaze against such a person. Every curse written in this book will fall on him, and Yahweh will blot his name out unto heaven. Yahweh will single him out of all the tribes of Israel for misfortune, in accordance with all the curses of the covenant written in the book of this law. The future generation, that of your children coming after you, and the foreigner arriving from some faraway land, on seeing the plagues and diseases inflicted on this country by Yahweh, will exclaim, Sulfur! Salt! The whole country is burning. No one will sow, nothing grow, no vegetation spring ever again. Devastation like that of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, devastated by Yahweh in his furious wrath. And all the nations will exclaim, Why has Yahweh treated this country like this? Why this great blaze of anger? And people will say, Because they deserted the covenant of Yahweh, God of their ancestors, the covenant which he made with them when he brought them out of Egypt, because they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods hitherto unknown to them, gods that were no part of their heritage from him. This is why Yahweh's anger has blazed against this country, afflicting it with all the curses written in this book. In anger, in fury, in fierce wrath, Yahweh has torn them from their own country and flung them into another country, where they are today. Things hidden belong to Yahweh our God, but things revealed are ours and our children's forever, so that we can put all the words of this law into practice. Deuteronomy, chapter 30. And when all these words have come true for you, the blessing and the curse which I have offered you, if you meditate on them in your heart wherever among the nations Yahweh your God has driven you, if you return to Yahweh your God, if with all your heart and with all your soul you obey his voice, you and your children, in everything that I am laying down for you today, then Yahweh your God will bring back your captives. He will have pity on you and gather you back from all the peoples, among whom Yahweh your God has scattered you. Should you have been banished to the very sky's end, Yahweh your God will gather you again even from there, will come there to reclaim you and bring you back to the country which belonged to your ancestors, so that you may possess it in your turn, and be made prosperous there and more numerous than your ancestors. Yahweh your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants, so that you will love Yahweh your God with all your heart and soul, and so will live. Yahweh your God will make all these curses recoil on your foes and on your enemies who have persecuted you. And once again you will obey the voice of Yahweh your God, and you will put all his commandments into practice, which I am laying down for you today. Yahweh your God will make you prosper in all your labors, in the offspring of your body, in the yield of your cattle and in the yield of your soil. For once again Yahweh will delight in your prosperity as he used to take delight in the prosperity of your ancestors, if you obey the voice of Yahweh your God, by keeping his commandments and decrees written in the book of this law, and if you return to Yahweh your God with all your heart and soul. For this law which I am laying down for you today is neither obscure for you nor beyond your reach. It is not in heaven, so that you need to wonder, who will go up to heaven for us and bring it down to us, so that we can hear and practice it? Nor is it beyond the seas, so that you need to wonder, who will cross the seas for us and bring it back to us, so that we can hear and practice it? No, the word is very near to you, it is in your mouth and in your heart for you to put into practice. Look, today I am offering you life and prosperity, death and disaster. If you obey the commandments of Yahweh your God, which I am laying down for you today, if you love Yahweh your God and follow his ways, if you keep his commandments, his laws and his customs, you will live and grow numerous, and Yahweh your God will bless you in the country which you are about to enter and make your own. But if your heart turns away, if you refuse to listen, if you let yourself be drawn into worshiping other gods and serving them, I tell you today, you will most certainly perish. You will not live for long in the country which you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. Today, I call heaven and earth to witness against you. I am offering you life or death, blessing or curse. Choose life then, so that you and your descendants may live, in the love of Yahweh your God, obeying his voice, holding fast to him. For in this your life consists, and on this depends the length of time that you stay in the country which Yahweh swore to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac and Jacob that he would give them. Deuteronomy, chapter 31. Moses went and spoke to all Israel as follows: Today, I am 120 years old, and can no longer act as leader. Yahweh has told me, you shall not cross this Jordan. Yahweh your God himself will lead you across. He himself will destroy and dispossess these nations confronting you. Joshua too will lead you across, as Yahweh has said. Yahweh will treat them as he has treated Sihon and Og the Amorite kings and their country. He destroyed them. Yahweh will put them at your mercy, and you will deal with them exactly as prescribed by the commandments which I have laid down for you. Be strong, stand firm, have no fear, do not be afraid of them, for Yahweh your God is going with you. He will not fail you or desert you. Moses then summoned Joshua and, in the presence of all Israel, said to him, Be strong, stand firm. You will be the one to go with this people into the country which Yahweh has sworn to their ancestors that he would give them. You are to be the one who puts them into possession of it. Yahweh himself will lead you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or desert you. Have no fear, do not be alarmed. Moses committed this law to writing and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of Yahweh's covenant, and to all the elders of Israel. And Moses gave them this command: at the end of every 7 years, at the time fixed for the year of remission, at the Feast of Shelters, when all Israel assembles in the presence of Yahweh your God in the place chosen by him, you must proclaim this law in the hearing of all Israel. Call the people together, men, women, children, and the foreigner residing with you, so that, hearing it, they may learn to fear Yahweh your God and keep and observe all the words of this law. Their children, who as yet do not know it, will hear it and learn to fear Yahweh your God, all the time you live in the country which you are crossing the Jordan to possess. Yahweh said to Moses, And now the time is near when you must die. Summon Joshua and take your places at the tent of meeting, so that I can give him his orders. Moses and Joshua went and took their places at the tent of meeting, and Yahweh showed himself at the tent in a pillar of cloud. The pillar of cloud stood at the door of the tent. Yahweh said to Moses, You will soon be sleeping with your ancestors, and this people is about to play the harlot by following the gods of the foreigners of the country, among whom they are going to live. They will desert me and break my covenant, which I have made with them. That very day, my anger will blaze against them. I shall desert them and hide my face from them. A host of disasters and misfortunes will overtake them to devour them. And when that day comes they will say, if such disasters overtake me, surely Yahweh my God cannot be with me? Yes, indeed, I shall hide my face that day, on account of all the evil which they will have done by turning to other gods. Now write down this song for you to use. Teach it to the Israelites, put it into their mouths, for it to be a witness on my behalf against the Israelites, against Israel, whom I am bringing into the country which I swore to his ancestors that I would give him, a country flowing with milk and honey, against Israel, who will eat to his heart's content and grow fat, and will then turn to other gods and serve them, despising me and breaking my covenant. When a host of disasters and misfortunes overtakes him, this song, like a witness, will give evidence against him, since his descendants will not have forgotten it. Yes, even today, before I have brought him to the country which I have promised him on oath, I know what plans he has in mind. So that day, Moses wrote out this song and taught it to the Israelites. To Joshua son of Nun, Yahweh gave this order, be strong and stand firm, for you are to be the one to bring the Israelites into the country which I have promised them on oath, and I myself shall be with you. When Moses had completely finished writing the words of this law in a book, he gave this command to the Levites who carried the ark of Yahweh's covenant. Take the book of this law and put it beside the ark of the covenant of Yahweh your God. Let it lie there as evidence against you. For I know how rebellious and stiff-necked you are. If today, while I am still alive and with you, you rebel against Yahweh, how much more will you rebel against him after my death? Gather all your tribal elders and scribes round me, so that I may be sure that they hear these words, as I call heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death you are certain to grow corrupt. You will leave the way which I have marked out for you. In the final days disaster will befall you for having done what is evil in Yahweh's eyes, for having provoked his anger by your behavior. In the hearing of the whole assembly of Israel, Moses then recited the words of this song to the end. Deuteronomy, chapter 32. Listen, heavens, while I speak. Hear, earth, the words that I shall say. May my teaching fall like the rain, may my word drop down like the dew, like showers on the grass, like light rain on the turf. For I shall proclaim the name of Yahweh. Oh, tell the greatness of our God. He is the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are equitable. A trustworthy God who does no wrong. He is the honest, the upright one. They have acted perversely, those he fathered without blemish, a deceitful and underhand brood. Is this the return you make to Yahweh? O people brainless and unwise! Is this not your Father, who gave you being, who made you, by whom you subsist? Think back on the days of old. Think over the years, down the ages. Question your Father. Let him explain to you, your elders, and let them tell you. When the Most High gave the nations each their heritage, when he partitioned out the human race, he assigned the boundaries of nations according to the number of the children of God. But Yahweh's portion was his people. Jacob was to be the measure of his inheritance. In the desert he finds him, in the howling expanses of the wastelands. He protects him, rears him, guards him as the pupil of his eye. Like an eagle watching its nest, hovering over its young, he spreads out his wings to hold him. He supports him on his pinions. Yahweh alone is his guide, no alien god for him. He gives him the heights of the land to ride. He feeds him on the yield of the mountains. He gives him honey from the rock to taste, and oil from the flinty crag, curds from the cattle, milk from the flock, and the richness of the pasture, rams of Bashan's breed, and goats, the richness of the wheat kernel, the fermented blood of the grape for drink. Jacob has eaten to his heart's content. Jeshurun, grown fat, has now lashed out. You have grown fat, gross, bloated. He has disowned the God who made him, and dishonored the rock, his salvation, whose jealousy they aroused with foreigners. With things detestable they angered him. They sacrificed to demons who are not God, to gods hitherto unknown to them, to newcomers of yesterday whom their ancestors had never respected. You forget the rock who fathered you, the God who made you, you no longer remember. Yahweh saw it, and in anger, he spurned his sons and daughters. I shall hide my face from them, he said, and see what will become of them. For they are a deceitful brood, children with no loyalty in them. They have roused me to jealousy with a non-God. They have exasperated me with their idols. In my turn I shall rouse them to jealousy with a non-people. I shall exasperate them with a stupid nation. Yes, a fire has blazed from my anger. It will burn right down to the depths of Sheol. It will devour the earth and all its produce. It will set fire to the footings of the mountains. I shall hurl disasters on them. On them I shall use up all my arrows. They will be weakened by hunger, eaten away by plague and the bitter scourge. Against them I shall send the fong of wild animals and the poison of snakes that glide in the dust. Outside, the sword bereaves, while inside terror will reign. Young man and girl alike will perish, suckling and graybeard both together. I should crush them to dust, I said. I should wipe out all memory of them. Did I not fear the boasting of the enemy? But do not let their foes be mistaken. Do not let them say, we have got the upper hand and Yahweh plays no part in this. What a short-sighted nation this is! How thoroughly imperceptive! Were they wise, they would succeed. They would be able to read their destiny. How else could one man rout 1,000? How could two put 10,000 to flight? Were it not that their rock has sold them, that Yahweh has delivered them up. But their rock is not like our rock. Our enemies cannot pray for us. For their vine springs from the stock of Sodom and from the groves of Gomorrah. Their grapes are poisonous grapes, their clusters are bitter. Their wine is snake's poison, the viper's cruel venom. But is he not safe with me, sealed inside my treasury? Vengeance is mine, I will pay them back, for the time when they make a false step. For the day of their ruin is close, doom is rushing towards them. For he will see to it that their power fails, that neither serf nor free man remains. For Yahweh will see his people righted, he will take pity on his servants. Where are their gods then, he will ask, the rock where they sought refuge, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their libations? Let these arise and help you, let these be the shelter above you. See now that I am he, and beside me there is no other God. It is I who deal death and life. When I have struck, it is I who heal. No one can rescue anyone from me. Yes, I raise my hand to heaven, and I say, as surely as I live forever, when I have whetted my flashing sword, I shall enforce justice, I shall return vengeance to my foes, I shall take vengeance on my foes. I shall make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword will feed on flesh, the blood of the wounded and the prisoners, the disheveled heads of the enemy. Heavens, rejoice with him, let all the children of God pay him homage. Nations, rejoice with his people, let God's envoys tell of his power. For he will avenge the blood of his servants, he will return vengeance to my foes. He will repay those who hate him and purify his people's country. Moses came with Joshua son of Nun and recited all the words of this song in the people's hearing. When Moses had finished reciting these words to all Israel, he said to them, Take all these words to heart. I intend them today to be evidence against you. You must order your children to keep and observe all the words of this law. You must not think of this as empty words, for the law is your life, and by its means you will live long in the country which you are crossing the Jordan to possess. Yahweh spoke to Moses that same day and said to him, Climb this mountain of the Abarim, Mount Nebo, in the country of Moab, opposite Jericho, and view the Canaan which I am giving to the Israelites as their domain. Die on the mountain you have climbed, and be gathered to your people, as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. Because, with the other Israelites, you broke faith with me at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the desert of Zin, because you did not make my holiness clear to the Israelites. You may only see the country from outside. You cannot enter it, the country which I am giving to the Israelites. Deuteronomy, chapter 33. This is the blessing that Moses, man of God, pronounced over the Israelites before he died. He said, Yahweh came from Sinai, from Seir he dawned on us, from Mount Paran blazed forth. For them he came, after the mustering at Kadesh, from his zenith as far as the foothills. You who love the ancestors, your holy ones are all at your command. At your feet they fell, under your guidance went swiftly on. Moses enjoined a law on us. The assembly of Jacob comes into its inheritance. There was a king in Jeshurun when the heads of the people foregathered and the tribes of Israel were all assembled. May Reuben survive and not die out, survive though his men be few. Of Judah he said this, Listen, Yahweh, to the voice of Judah, and bring him back to his people, that his hands may defend his rights, come to his help against his foes. Of Levi he said, To Levi, give your Urim, to your faithful one, your Thummim, having tested him at Massa, having striven with him at the waters of Meribah. Of his father and mother he says, I have not seen them. He does not acknowledge his brothers, nor does he know his own children. Yes, they have kept your word. They hold firmly to your covenant. They will teach your customs to Jacob, and your law to Israel. They will put incense before you and burnt offerings on your altar. Yahweh, bless his worthiness, and accept the actions he performs. Crush the loins of those who rise against him and of his foes, so that they rise no more. Of Benjamin he said, Beloved of Yahweh, he rests trustfully near him. The Most High protects him day after day and dwells between his hillsides. Of Joseph he said, His land is blessed by Yahweh. For him the best of heaven's dew and of the deep that lies below, the best of what the sun makes grow, of what springs with every month, the first fruits of the ancient mountains, the best from the hills of old, the best of the land and all it holds, the favor of him who dwells in the bush. May the hair grow thick on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the consecrated one among his brothers. Firstborn of the bull, his the glory. His horns are the wild ox's horns, with which he gores the peoples to the very ends of the earth. Such are the myriads of Ephraim, such are the thousands of Manasseh. Of Zebulun he said, Prosper, Zebulun, in your expeditions, and you, Issachar, in your tents. On the mountain where the people come to pray, they offer upright sacrifices, for they taste the riches of the seas and the treasures hidden in the sands. Of Gad he said, Blessed be he who gives Gad space enough. He lies there like a lioness. He has savaged arm and face and head. Then he took the first portion for himself, saw that there was stored up for him a leader's share. He has come at the head of the people, has carried out the saving justice of Yahweh and his judgments on Israel. Of Dan he said, Dan is a lion cub leaping from Bashan. Of Naphtali he said, Naphtali, sated with favors, filled with the blessings of Yahweh, the west and south are to be his domain. Of Asher he said, Most blessed of the sons let Asher be. Let him be the most privileged of his brothers, and let him bathe his feet in oil. Be your bolts of iron and of bronze, and your security as lasting as your days. No one is like the God of Jeshurun. He rides the heavens to your rescue, rides the clouds in his majesty. The God of old is your refuge, his the eternal arm which here below drives the enemy before you. He it is who says, Destroy. Israel rests trustfully. The wellspring of Jacob is chosen out for a land of corn and wine. Their heaven itself rains down dew. Blessed are you, O Israel. Who is like you, O victorious people? Yahweh is the shield that protects you and the sword that leads you to triumph. Your enemies will try to corrupt you, but you yourself will trample on their backs. Deuteronomy, chapter 34. Then, leaving the plains of Moab, Moses went up Mount Nebo, the peak of Pisgah opposite Jericho, and Yahweh showed him the whole country, Gilead as far as Dan, the whole of Naphtali, the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, the whole country of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negeb, and the region of the valley of Jericho, city of palm trees, as far as Zor. Yahweh said to him, "This is the country which I promised on oath to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I shall give it to your descendants. I have allowed you to see it for yourself, but you will not cross into it." There in the country of Moab, Moses, servant of Yahweh, died as Yahweh decreed. He buried him in the valley, in the country of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but to this day no one has ever found his grave. Moses was 120 years old when he died, his eye undimmed, his vigor unimpaired. The Israelites wept for Moses on the plains of Moab for 30 days. The days of weeping for the mourning rites of Moses came to an end. Joshua son of Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him, and him the Israelites obeyed, carrying out the order which Yahweh had given to Moses. Since then, there has never been such a prophet in Israel as Moses, the man whom Yahweh knew face to face. What signs and wonders Yahweh caused him to perform in Egypt against Pharaoh, all his servants and his whole country. How mighty the hand and great the fear that Moses wielded in the eyes of all Israel.